Namaste, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Shakti Vriddhi Podcasts. Today, we have with us once again Santhip ji. I'll not introduce much because he's a powerhouse in astrology, and we are lucky to have him back. We are grateful. Thank you, Santhip ji, for taking out the time to appear today.
Sure. Yeah. Namaste, Anuji, Rajji, Archaji, and your viewers. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me back again. Yeah. Sure.
Namaste, Santosh.
Yeah.
So, dear viewers, we are following the similar format that I had mentioned last time. Between the three of us, Archit, Rahil, and I, will be hosting Sandeep ji. I thank my Guru Bandhus, Rahil and Archit, for agreeing to host with me today. So, Sandeep ji, with your permission, shall we start?
Yeah. Sure. Please. Yes.
So, one of the topics that we discussed last time, we couldn't go much into, was the power of pilgrimage and the power of pilgrimage to your Ishta. Sandeep ji, what are your thoughts?
Okay. So it's a very interesting and important topic, to be frank. To think about the concept of a kshetram or a temple and all that, So if you think about it, what is the difference? Now, there is a lot of depth to kshetrams, and India is definitely the land of kshetrams, lot of land of temples and so forth. The power of mystical temples are also great, actually. There are certain kshetrams which are extremely powerful. Now, first we have to understand the word kshetram. So, of course, what we are calling is a temple or a kshetram. Kshetram translates to something, usually anything that removes shata. Shata is your problems, any injury or any harm kind of thing. And depending upon the kind of injury, different kind of kshetrams are there. So, the field where the shata can be removed. Like that's a kshetra match. That's the first thing to recognize. It's not just a temple or a house building and all that. It's like a field act. That's the first shift that should happen. And more importantly, like there are certain aspects also which needs to be understood further. So the other thing is that just like how if anyone comes into your house, you treat them as a guest, you give them chai, coffee, biscuit or whatnot, that kind of thing. So similarly, like when you are going to a temple or a kshetram, we are entering into the house of that devata. That's a very important aspect to recognize. So you have to have that attitude in mind. So now if someone comes into your house, the guest is treating you gently, they are talking to quite well, they are asking her, how are you, how are things and so forth, you have a good conversation, great, it's a good thing. So then definitely you will also be pleased giving them food, you are also enjoying their presence and experience and so forth. So it's a very easy conversation at that point in time. At the same time, if someone comes into your house and creates a ruckus, they are fighting, they are arguing, they don't leave a good energy field, they are making angry, making you feel angry at various things also. So then eventually you will also feel frustrated kind of thing would happen. So one big thing that you have to recognize is the idea that any time you are going to a temple, you are entering into a house of a temple, and you have to think in your mind that you are entering the house of a VIP. You are entering the house of a VIP. You are actually entering into the house of the Devata, and you have to be on your best behavior. So one of the things they would always say is that always take bath, be clean, wear your best clothes to visit a VIP. Right? It's as simple as that. Now of course, if just like how if you're pleasant, you are pleased, pleasant mood and calm and peaceful when you enter into the house of the Devata. And the Devata will also be pleased to meet you. At the same time, if you're angry at the security guard, angry at the people who are there and all that, definitely that also has its own concerns. Now, I'm not saying that the legitimate, it's no, the reason to be legitimate also to be angry. However, the concept is that the Devata is perfectly capable of handling his or her servants. So we should not be angered by the Devata and all that becomes very important. So it's a very important thing. So whatever emotions you express in a field of a Devata becomes registered in the field, and then that becomes that kind of energy can be utilized and amplified by the Devata also. Very important thing. So you have to have that consciousness. You have to have that awareness. Okay, I'm entering into the field of this Devata. I'm entering into this home of the Devata. That's an extremely important thing. So most of the time we get angry at the line is long or the whatever, right? We have to pay money to get in or what would it be like, oh, this government's not taking, or what would be we get angry and all that. So all that issues are there. But having said so, we should still be conscious that we are still in the home of a deity. That's the first thing that happens. Now the thing I started by introducing a temple as a field. So what that means is that temple is no longer a building, and it's no longer just like a house or a statue of a devata where you're doing puja and all that is happening. Now, all temples, all kshetrams will have a specific kind of energy field it is like adapted to. That's also one more thing to keep in mind. So one temple of Shiva will carry the energy of Shiva in a very powerful way. It is a consecrated energy, an energy that Stalapurana has been done. That energy has been allowed to flourish through daily rituals and so forth, and that energy has been allowed to expand. So that's what happens with when you're doing in a kshetra. So you do rituals in the morning, noon, and evening time. Sometimes trikal time, sometimes 6 time puja and all that. So that particular initial energy which was actually established is actually maintained for our own karmic energy removal kind of thing. Now that is the other thing. So quite often when you're going to a temple, you're definitely going to meet a deity who's sitting and who's alive more than what we know. That's a very important aspect. But you are still entering into the field of the deity. That's the first important concept to recognize. Now, why do I emphasize this? Because whatever happens in that field of the deity is the deity's icha or the deity's will. Very important thing. If you're standing in a queue, that is the deity's will. If you are having an argument with the security guard, the deity's will. If someone is mistreating you in the long queue, deity's will, as far as your karmic level is concerned. And this is a pretty amazing thing when you understand that. Because the moment you understand that fundamentals of karma plays out in that temple field, then you can approach this temple field in a much more deeper awareness. You can get more out of your temple visit. You can actually get more out of pilgrimage kind of thing. Now, so the moment you understand the field, right? So let's put it this way. Let's take even the closest temple to our home. Now, this is also a very important point. So the concept of a field extends to all the temples, not just tantric temples in Kerala. In tantric temples in Kerala, which are established according to Tantra, this concept is given. Like, the steps of the temple is considered to be the feet of the goddess. The moment you get to the main door, the front door kind of thing, entering the big temple, it is the belly region of the goddess. There is a belly kalla kind of thing where used to be sacrifices and all that. So that particular region is basically the yoni of the goddess kind of concept. You have the other, the flagpole, which is like the main center point of the goddess kind of thing. Then you go inside. As you're getting closer to the deity, you are basically traveling over the body of the goddess is the concept in Kerala. So that's a very standard kind of thing. So like you initially you go through a lower section, then you go through the chest region, which is basically a gap between the first section and the second section. There is a gap. That's where most of the havans and most of the rituals and parayan and bhajans and all that happen usually. And then you get to the neck region, and then you're finally seeing the face actually in the main Garbhagriha. So that is a very important concept. The temple is now a body of a devata. And so now in Kerala temple, they are designed accordingly. You'll actually say that if there is an obstacle in the feet of the devata, then there is even the natives might have a problem with the feet aspect of their life. Okay. So I think my connection had a little bit interruption, but it should be fine.
Santhip,
Yeah.
we could hear you clearly.
Okay, great. So the feet kind of thing is a real thing to be mindful about. So the steps of a temple, the long steps whether you take, or now some temples will have long steps if you're climbing a hill. Some temples might not even have steps, but still you will find steps. So the step will still be like the feet of the deity. So the outermost portion of the temple will be the feet of the deity. Now, accordingly, the kind of energy also you can get. So in general, deities that are on top of hills are considered to be more peaceful, more Shanta Surupa kind of thing, because you are actually climbing steps for a long time. By the time you're supposed to calm down by the time you reach the top, and then finally you're entering into the temple. So more Shanta Surupa temples are, Shanta deities are more top of hill deities most of the time. According to Vastu, also the rule. Now the temples that are underground, like Kalighat and all that, you have to go down. So it's a very direct place. So that is definitely without doubt that is like a Ugra Surupa, like Ugra kind of temple. Now in some temples like Chotanikara, you have both. You have the Mela Kavu, where you have to climb the top, and you have the Kil Kavu also, where you have to go down. So both are present there. The Ugra Sobha is there in the Kil Kavu thing, and the Mela Kavu has the Shanta Surupa kind of thing. So both are accessible there. So that is also other thing you have to recognize. So some of these, and most of the temple, according to when you're designing a temple, according to proper agamic rules and the Vastu Shastra rules and all that, a design of a temple specific deities are always allocated specific regions because of that. So quite often in Kerala temple, you'll always see the deities capable of handling the booth gun and all that in the southwest corner actually. Southwest corner of the temple, you'll always see like an Ayyappa shrine. Ayyappa is very common in Kerala because of that. So that is very important corner, by the way, because that is a very materialistic kind of corner. You get your desires fulfilled. That is astrologically, that is directly linked with Rahu energy. So Ayyappa is definitely capable of coming down your Rahu and Shani kind of energy. So you see that kind of energy much more easily. Some of the other temples, you'll have Ganapati very close to the left side and all that. So Ganapati is also very important. Now, of course, in Shaivite temples and all that, there is a particular sequence you have to follow. You initially go to Ganapati, then you have to go to Nandi, then you have to go to Shiva. In fact, you are supposed to whisper your prayer to Nandi and only then go to Shiva. All that sequence is there. So there are many other layers to that as well. There are specific other aspects also that has to happen. Now, of course, you might have a specific honor for Krishna in a specific temple. If it's a sub-deity there, you might have a specific portion for Narasimha and whatnot in other temples. So you might have a specific temple for Nagas as well. So quite often you will see Nagas in the western portion or the southwestern portion as well, and all that. Now, and of course, in a Naga shrine temple, where one focuses on Nagas, the Naga itself will be in the southwestern portion of the land. Like you call it Naga Kota, like the fortress of Nagas. That will be the main thing. That will be the bigger portion of that thing and all that. Usually the southwest of the land. Most of the Nair families used to have Nagas, and literally on the southwest of their land would be kept as a forest act. So they would maintain it. It would be just like maintained in a wild fashion. And once a year, like, Naga kind of offerings would have been made. Actually. So it's a very normal thing. It used to be like that. And now, of course, there are modern day problems because they forget the roots, they forget their importance, they forget the blessings because there's a lot of issues come about in that family. Now that's a different thing. But this was the norm actually. So that is one aspect. So the field of a deity becomes very important. So just like how the various parts of the temple can be linked with various body parts of the devata. Now, closer you get to the face of the devata, now you're kind of overcoming a lot of other zones. Just like in your sadhana marga, you have the tamasic region, you have the rajasic region, and the sattvic region. So clearly, as you're getting closer to the deity, you are also overcoming those kind of aspects. So mostly the tamasic deities are mostly outside of the temple because of that. Outside the main temple, you'll find a lot of tamasic kind of deities, more guardian kind of deities, and so forth. So mostly Shani, Mars, Rahu, Ketu kind of a deities you'll find many times outside because of that. Outside the main Garbhagriha, outside the main temple concept because of that. And then you are getting closer, then you find more Rajasi kind of deities, more activity kind of happening, more Kriya Mark kind of deities, more puja kind of thing, stuff like that. And then when you get closest to the deity, where is the Garbhagriha, now in Kerala and all that, the concept is that the deepam, the lamp that is lit for the deity is the eyes of the deity, and the lamp energy, the lamp's light is reflected over the idol, which is capable of giving you blessings actually. So there is an idol also, and so but the lamp lit is also equally important. Let's put it that way. Now the idol becomes more important in South Indian temples and all that because the puja, that idol has been storing energy for eons actually, the thousands of years, 2000 years and all that. A particular energy, all the energy, daily pujas have been going on and all that. So in fact, when Britishers and all that would come to attack these temples, the Brahmin would basically Islamic invaders and all that, when they would come, like the Brahmin would take the idol and run away because that was the most precious thing. You can't recreate 1,100 years of puja and all that again to the idol or the stone idol, which has been storing a lot of energy actually. So that's the other aspect that happens. So now, of course, now when you're getting closer to the deity, the Garbhagriha becomes the face of the deity, and the actual lamb, actual murti, which you see inside, becomes the eyes of the deity. That's a very important concept as well. Now here's the thing, right? So now we have to remember that, as I mentioned last video, like each deities have their own karmic thing going on. They have they potentially are linked with a particular karmic energy, or potentially each deities have their own planetary linkage, which is what you have. So like tamasic deities will have a link with tamasic grahas like Shani, Mars, Rahu, Ketu. The rajasic deities will have rajasic graha linkage with Mercury and Venus, and the sattvic deities will have sattvic linkage with Sun, Jupiter, Mars actually. Now, most of the times when you're going to a temple, you're carrying your own karmic field and entering into the temple. Now, one of the things we believe is that when I have this problem, if I go to a temple, so if I do this pilgrimage, the karma is completely off, and then I come back, then the karma is off. So that's the usual belief. But in reality, that's not exactly what happens. what actually happens is that karma is karma. If you hurt someone, that hurt will come back to you no matter what. No matter karma is karma. But when you go to a higher dimensional field like that of a temple deity, the karma, because the field itself is very high, incidents that happen in the temple can nullify karma to a big chunk. So if a security guard blasts at you in a temple, rather than you getting blasted by your boss, the security guard at the temple might be blasting you, because that's a karma. That's what might happen. You might have a big delay kind of thing, which you might have to wait for your some incident or whatnot. What would be the delay in your life, what you're experiencing. But the whole time you're waiting in the queue is kind of like your delay karma being processed there actually. That's the other aspect that happens. Now, quite often, most of the time would understand that they already carry a lot of karma. So many times, big temples and all that, many people would start the pilgrimage by food because of that. They already know I have done a lot of sins and so forth. I need to clear that karma. Let me make sure I'm working off my Shani karma by walking it out. So even today, Sabrimala and all that, very common to see in Kerala, where you see even people from Karnataka, Andhra and all walking all the way actually. Like it's pretty crazy. They'll walk for an entire month, 2-3 weeks and all, and just on road and so forth, and then literally surviving on the thing, and then they'll clear the karma, and then when they reach the Sabrimala, then a lot of karmas are cleared off along the way. They do it consciously. But of course, if you don't do it consciously, you might have to wait there one way or the other, right? So that kind of thing, the Shani karma had to be played out there. So say you have the karma of fault. So someone is walking by, you just fall in a temple. That means that you already have Shani karma, and that Shani karma is getting purified by the deity at that point in time. Now, suddenly you will see your family members acting very widely, completely out of ordinary when they are inside temple and all. That's exactly what is happening. Your karmas are getting processed by the deity within the Kshetra. Exactly that. So quite often you'll see very unique thing going on, like either the baby is unwilling to go, or your spouse is having issues, or they are unable to come, they are having fever, whatnot, what would be the issues and all that. You would have that mind. The karma is getting processed by the deity, and it is the deity's will that is happening there. So that is the one big thing you have to recognize. Now, again, so having said so, there are other issues with temple, again, legal, societal, all that is there. But I have no doubt this is still happening no matter what the real state going on with temple is. As far as an upasaka is concerned, this kind of thing should be a mental state going on. Now, quite often, because of this, if you begin to recognize that everyone who is linked with a temple is actually literally representing the deity, representing the angas of the deity. They are the organs of the deity. The security guard now becomes the arms of the deity. The servant becomes the Saturn of the deity. The security guard would become the Mars of the deity. The servants would become the Saturn of the deity. The Jupiter of the deity, the priest would be the Jupiter aspect of the deity. All the trust people and all that would be the sun, moon aspect of the deity, kind of thing. And quite often you'll have young children, young people, Mercury aspect of the deity. The artists, the bhajan group and all that will be the Venus of the deity, and so forth. You will see that. And accordingly, you'll have the Rahu Ketu aspect also, which will be like outside aspect, inside aspect kind of thing going on, which is also different. So quite often when you go to a simple temple, if you really carefully understand your karmic thing, pay close attention to the interaction you're having with the angas of the devata, with the people who are there in the temple. Pay very close attention. That is the deity interacting with you at that point in time. The deity is not going to come down, talk to you directly. The deity might use her own actions to kind of convey the message to you in many ways. Now, of course, depending upon your upasana and all that, even people who come and go will also be possessed. That's a different thing. So you might potentially have interaction with an older person or a young balika, or even a female might come and all that kind of incident can happen, which is a normal thing in the temple. Whoever comes in temple becomes part of that collective energy of the deity anyway. So that's a big thing also. But pay very close attention to that. So quite often, if a priest says something, it is the deity asking you to do something else on that front. Now, if you understand the energy of what is happening, you can utilize that. If you are going to a temple, you're overhearing a conversation happening about robbers, not an accident. Astrologer can immediately recognize that's a Rahu energy, which the deity is making the native be familiar with. So it's like the deity is making sure you are exactly at that point in time when the robbers is being talked about. So you become very hyper aware there actually. That's one thing that happens. So of course, if you are just aware of what energies are being visible, what energies are actually coming into your field, what is coming into your attention, slowly you can actually convert that into real kind of information that is actionable. Now there is one more aspect also to temple. There is so as I mentioned, angas of the temple you have to recognize. So if you're having an interaction with the worker of a temple, or that's the person who's crossing your field. When you're walking, that's the first person who's crossing, then you're having to walk across that and so forth. Different thing. And then, so you have to recognize those energy or the angas of the deities accordingly. If a priest crosses your path, or priest is the one with whom you have direct interaction with, that you have to recognize as well. Now, of course, the other thing also that which many Indians hate. I hate to say it also. Like usually when you go to a temple, usually the concept of dakshina is very not used. You are either stingy for dakshina, or people don't are not generous with dakshina, or you might even meet very greedy people who are very greedy about dakshina also. But no matter what, if the priest is being greedy at that point in time and asking him money, that is a deity link. I want more money so that I can purify your karma at that point in time. There is that aspect to it. The priest might just be the instrument of the deity who's possessed by the deity temporarily at that point in time, but your karmas is the reason why the priest is telling you at that point in time. Most of the time, the priest would, of course, they'll do their thing. They want money, whatnot, whatever, right? You'll see that kind of thing. No matter what temple you go to, south and north, and you'll see that interaction sometimes. But you have to understand this is what it means. At this point in time, this deity wanted this puja thing of me. This wanted annadana from me or whatnot. That is a karmic thing. You have to recognize that. You cannot ignore that. So you have to recognize that. So the moment you recognize that deity has informed you at that point in time, something has happened. Then you can utilize that information to your knowledge, to your advantage. You can utilize that and clear off the karma at that point in time, or you can actually move ahead with life. But the moment you understand this kind of aspect was presented at that point in time, it means your own karmic field has attracted that kind of thing your way as well. So very important thing to recognize. So quite often when you're doing pilgrimages, along the way your karma gets purified. That's what usually happens. So you're going to a temple, the car breaks down. Your karma is not that great as far as that energy is concerned. Let's put it this way: you're going to a Lakshmi temple. Every day you're beating up your wife. Every day you are like, harassing women and all that. Lakshmi is not going to want to see you. So she clearly is going to create obstacles for you because you are not respecting the Lakshmi of your household, which is your wife. So clearly there'll be issues when you go to a temple. At the same time, if you're having a great relationship with your wife and all that, with representatives of Lakshmi, you're treating money rightly, you're being, you're being okay with good with luxury, generous, keeping money flowing and all that, good money habits going on. You're going to Lakshmi temple, Lakshmi will make the pathway much more easily. Either you might find someone who knows the temple, they help you to get to the queue long, very quickly and all that. That kind of thing will naturally happen. And this is the big thing actually. Now, in Kali Yuga, deities also have their own Kali kind of way of handling things also. So that is expected. So you can't blame like underhanded ways to reach temples, contacts and so forth, to be blunt about it. So you cannot, Krishna temple, all that, you might have to pay people because Krishna is hardcore, like, he steals butter and all that. So definitely that's expected in general. I would not be surprised by that. Even there are a lot of allegations about Guruvayur temple has a lot of people stealing under the temple and all that. A lot of allegations are going on right now. Not surprised by it. That's the energy of Krishna also. So that expected actually. But this is the other thing also you have to recognize. So quite often your interactions within a temple field, a Kshetram deity, a deity living in a Kshetram, is a very powerful interaction that can, of course, purify. That deity is carrying a particular energy. If you have that karmic affliction, as you're going to the temple, that energy will definitely get purified as well. And definitely the moment you get to the darshan of the deity is a very powerful moment. Now, this is something I definitely teach share about this to some of my, let's put it this way, like some astrology enthusiasts and students and all that. Like I tell them to look at the darshan chart. Look at the moment the deity decide to grant darshan to you. In fact, we have it upside down. We forget about why I just got darshan the deity and came back. Wrong. You should be thinking, this is the moment the deity decide to give you darshan. In fact, you can see exactly the nature of blessings you will get by looking at the moment more dearly. Now, again, no one will talk about it. The new concept, completely new, but you can do that and more. Because that's the exact moment that is happening. You can, if you do an astrological analysis of that particular moment, quite often you can predict the exact nature of blessing which the deity gave you as well. And that's a big thing. So definitely when you go to many specific temples and all that, you can do that much more easily. And you can do the simple techniques like the first house is getting activated in the first day, second house, second day, or first month. You can measure the blessing of a particular deity at that point in time. And that's a big, big thing. You can do that and more. I cannot emphasize that enough. So that is the other thing. So the moment when that happens, the moment when you pay attention to that, you'll begin to see that is also opening you up to very specific kind of energies around specific kind of times. Now, quite often, in Guruvayur and all that, Krishna is Alangar of Krishna is in specific rupas and so forth, which you see going on. Sometimes it's Kali Mardana rupa, sometimes like the normal Kamsavarta rupa, what would be, right? So different kind of rupas of Krishna Alangar is there. So quite often, that is also a big karmic thing going on for you, actually. And you might be surprised. Now, if you are worshipping Kali Mardana form of Krishna, you are more likely to go to Guruvayur temple when Kali Mardana rupa is going on. You have some photo of Kali Mardana in your home. Your energetically engaged with that rupa of Krishna is already strong. Most of the time when you end up going to Guruvayur, you will see some kind of Kali Mardana thing happening. So what that means is that your own energetically engaged, whatever energies you have built up with your sadhana, will quite often be reflected by the deity who is carrying that energy as well, much more easily. Now, this was a very shocking thing to me because, I happened to realize this is actually from Kolkata, actually, like this particular thing, this particular aspect which I just shared. Like, I went to Kalighat temple. So, Kalighat temple was basically like, Kolkata temple, or name similar to Calicut. Let me go see. Famous Kalighat temple, Shakti Peeth and all that. Let me try go see what that temple is and all that. Now, I go there. Then I'm going to that temple. The moment when I'm outside, now it's a very normal thing. Normally in South Indian temple only the Brahmins test the Kalash and all that, right? There is no way, no thing happening in South India. Only Brahmins trained people doing mantra jap every day and all that. They are the ones who do it. But whether the moment like when I'm there, I literally there was some like the priest people, like they were actually pulling the thing out of that well. And that pot, they literally, I was just walking by, they like, pass this to the other guy. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just like a passer. I'm just here. Do you want me to pass that thing? Like, do you know what you want? So, but he still insisted. He's like insisting, like, normal Bengali, Kalighat also, people that are very notorious from the thing. Now they gave it, I just tossed it and passed it to the other guy. Then when I came back, I was like, why did that happen? Then I realized there was a real ritual about the Kalash happening in my own home temple of which is Bhadrakali and all that, which is a normal thing. Then I realized that, okay, that I was involved with the ritual for a long time. Like whenever I've been here in home and all that, I was very much strongly involved with that Kalash ritual back in my home temple. That's when it's clicked actually. Like even to go to a Kali temple and get the Kalash of normal water from a well kind of thing being passed on. Literally, I was doing something like that in my home temple. So that was the energetic linkage I probably established with my own thing. And when I came back and did that, so that exact energy thing was happening in Kali place no matter what. It's an amazing thing which you see. So whatever sadhana you're doing will be reflected in the whatever Kshetram you visit. And so, of course, you visit the Ishtas, Kshetram and all that. You visit the temple, closely linked with your family, closely you are doing some sadhana or whatnot, or any kind of karmic linkage you have. That will also be reflected in all other Kshetrams. Now, this can happen for good or this can happen for bad. So, to quote another example, someone went to like a Narasimha temple, Lakshmi Narasimha temple. He's sponsoring the Annadanam in that occasion. And then, some drama, Narasimha people. So, Narasimha temple, everyone is angry. A normal response in like Narasimha, that's expected. So, the old man there is angry that why did this man keep his, luggage on the pathway or whatnot. He's angry. This guy becomes angry. And he's like, why are you shouting back at me? So like, that is the old guy goes away. Some other guys like, this is the old guy. Why are you raising a noise? He again shouted, why are you telling me to do this again? He got that ego thing. I'm sponsoring this Annadana. Why should I go through torture kind of thing? But he does not understand his karma is getting processed there. So that's the other issue going on. Now this guy goes to like, he goes back to the US. Some Vishnu, some Lakshmi Devi temple is there. He tries to offer the sari to the Brahmin. Now this guy, the Brahmin has taken a sari he goes to the temple expecting his sari to be put on. One occasion, the Brahmin just forgets about it. The second occasion also, now he's like angry again. Why did the Brahmin not put? But again, now he's like trained. I told him you should not be angry at the temple. Now you recognize that. So one occasion he's not going there. Second occasion also he goes again, the sari is not put on. Now he's again sad. He's again kind of. Then he talks to me about it. I'm telling, okay, seems like you might have made, you might have to create a problem in a Kshetram for you to experience this kind of thing. Now this is so see, concept of karma is very important. You have your birth chart karma, but you also create karmas in this lifetime. Very important. So there is a concept called you have the Sanchita karma, the prarabdha which you will experience in this lifetime. There's also Kriyamani karma which you're creating all day long. So if you go to a temple and create new karma, the Kriyamani karma is still coming back to you. Very important. And that will whatever karma you have will be very, very visible in whatever kshetrams you visit according to the energy of that kshetra. Of course, so his sari, the third time he goes, his sari he sees his sari being there and all that. So now why the third time? There were 2 occasions where he created disruption in that Lakshmi Narasimha temple. Very quiet. So it's purely mathematical. Whatever you get, you completely deserve. This is exactly how karma works. The moment you understand that, you can utilize to your advantage or not. Now, having understand of this, once you understand this aspect of karma, temples are very living fields of where your karmic interactions are happening. You can kind of utilize that to your advantage. You can develop certain aspects of the energy. Now, this is a very powerful thing, by the way. Quite often when you go to a temple and where you do like a day-long sadhana. Now, most of the people don't realize in the morning time, a deity is in a particular rupa, the noon time, the deity is in a particular different bhava, evening time, the deity is in a different bhava most of the time. Now, now I mentioned in Kerala temple, the angas of the entire field of the temple being organs of the devata is something which I've shared. However, this is still valid in all the temples, even North Indian temples also. Have no doubt about that. Have zero doubt about that. In the steps outside, whatever temple you go, completely linked with the deity. There is zero doubt about that. Of course, it's not designed in a tantric way kind of thing. That is, of course, people are not conscious of that interaction and all that there. But have no doubt that field of the data is still becoming very, very relevant. Of course, they might not be consciously aware that the closer you're getting to it, you're getting to the sattvic, the face of the deity kind of thing. They might not be aware. But that aspect is still very much relevant. Wherever a deity is there, that becomes very relevant. Because if you mathematically think about it also, like an energy place where like a puja is being happening, slowly the power will expand to a point. There will be a point where it's concentrated. The closer you get to the point, the energy aspect, initially the feet and the hands and neck and face and all that will happen no matter where you're at. In fact, there is these become very important aspect actually. Of course, in the Shastras and Agamas and all that are clearly outlined, which body part and all that is clearly outlined. But even if there is no clear structure there, that energy aspect will still be there. Is something you have to recognize. So it doesn't matter. The closer you're to a deity, you're getting much more deeper kind of energetic thing. The middle portion, you're kind of getting the Kriya Marga kind of inputs. The outer portion, you're getting some real solution remedies kind of thing going on also. And quite often, before you go to a temple, your karmas before gets purified. And after you come to the temple, what is the effect, what you can expect as blessing from the deity will show up as nimittas usually. So quite often when you're coming out of a temple, you see 3 crows, the crows just fly away the moment you step it. 3 problems will solved. Stuff like that. Look at whoever is coming and talking to you after that. If a priest comes your way and talks to you, some Jupiter blessing you can expect. If like a bhajan person comes and talks to you, Venus blessing you can expect. If you come out here seeing a couple come along and all that, you can predict that kind of thing. This kind of prediction can easily be made. So identify the energy of the energetic interaction happening in a kshetra. Identify the planetary energy link with that particular event. Immediately you can decipher what events happened before, what events can happen again. It's a very simple kind of thing, but it works. Very easily it works. And then you look at the moment, the darshan jad concept that will give much more clarity in many ways. So it's a very powerful idea when you think about it, right? So that's the other aspect. And most of the time, there were specific, what is the power of actually creating a kshetram where a deity is actually maintained? This is a big concept. So for instance, in astrology, one of the things you can actually do in normal prediction is that usually whatever planet is in the 4th house, say you have Jupiter in the 4th house, an astrologer might say your house is close to a Vishnu temple. And most of the time that will be right. But look at that. What did the astrologers do? He was looking at a native chart and making a prediction for the temples close to his home. How does that happen? Like it's supposed to be individual karma. So what's going on there? So what it translates to is that the temples around your home is always having a direct link with your karma as well. And most of the time in the Bhuloka level of karma, we just assume like, okay, I move to a particular location, whatever, right? Rental thing or house apartment thing and all that. Okay, that's location's fine. But we rarely pay attention to temples close to home. But believe me, you are there because of temples. Whatever be the temples close to home is a karmic reason why you're there. In fact, when you go to any particular place, like a city like Madurai, where the Kshetram, the main Desha Devata of that particular land is basically Madurai Meenakshi, the most biggest temple there in that land, clearly. without a doubt that you have a karmic link going on with that deity, which is actually getting purified. So this was understood by the ancients. One of the first things they would do whenever they had any business in any other outside temple, any cities, they would go to the Desha Devata first. They'll do whatever they could do in that temple, whatever they could offer. Okay, please, I'm coming for this business. Please allow me this to happen, a good deal. And please bless my endeavor and all that. And only then after they would go to that. You want to move to a new city, you would go to the Grama Devata or Desha Devata of that particular city. So like if you are in Dehradun, you would basically like go to the Dehradun Mata, which is the Mata outside there. That I had a friend who basically said he wanted to get a house there, and then he had to go to the Mata, pray for it. Within a day or two itself, he got a house and things sorted out there. So this becomes very important now. But in reality, the Buloka level karma, the visible spectrum karma is what we see here. But the invisible spectrum karma, the devatas around are having big say in a huge way. And that's a big other side of it also. So quite often, if you make it, and what happens that many people are stuck in a bad job, right? So like I'm unhappy in my workplace or whatnot. Identify a temple close to your place. Have a regular thing going on with the temple. You'll be amazed. Maybe you might get a transfer soon, or you might get a new job also soon. That kind of thing might happen. It's a pretty amazing thing when you begin to understand that. And quite often, if you do an upasana of a Ishta Devata, what happens is that Ishta Devata temple, that energetic linkage will be very immediate. If you do an upasana, extend upasana of a particular devata, that thing will be reflected in the events happening in the temple. Like you are going out of nowhere, you gave the priest some additional money. Like out of nowhere, you're being generous with the priest. Now again, if you're giving money to the priest, you're enhancing your Jupiter no matter what. The priest is whoever is giving you normally the dakshina is supposed to be given only after that you're supposed to get the prasad. That's the thing. But now we do it opposite actually. But now if you give that thing and you get the offering, quite often you give the additional money, the priest won't know what to do. They'll give you additional thing also. Very easy thing if you want to hack in temple actually. Give them additional money, they'll have to give you something more. But interesting is that now the more money you're giving there, you'll get it one way or the other way back. Now priest will be happy. To make the servant of the temple person happy is equivalent to making the deity smile. At one anga of the deity is smiling, you can get a corresponding blessing. So if you're the priest is happy, you get Jupiter blessing. Security guard is happy, you get additional blessing, whatnot. All that kind of thing happens. So now then you will be amazed actually. If you are doing at a particular day, you are doing a particular upasana and all that, you go to a particular temple, you will have an amazing, extraordinary experience. Like that, the deity will be welcoming you no matter what. That's a big thing that has to happen. That will happen. And now the other amazing thing is that sometimes it becomes like that. If you're doing Ishta, if you're doing a upasana for Devata, like you don't have time because of circumstances to go to a temple. The deity might even come out to actually see you. So you'll be amazed like that also. If that makes sense. So either you are unable to go to a temple, then there might be like the procession of the deity happening. You might see that, which is also a very fascinating thing. You will be amazed. It's a very normal thing, to be frank. But the important thing you have to recognize that nothing ever happens as an accident whenever a deity is concerned. You never mention the name of a temple by accident. You never will a deity's message, even those Instagram messages also, like literally it's never an accident. That's a lot of spiritual companies are there, save this temple, save that temple, donate to this temple, do this puja, do that puja. Never an accident. The moment you pay attention to those kind of things, you can get more out of that also. Something I can encourage. So this is one other aspect. So temples are living fields. It's an alive field, a field that is alive. It's not a static place and so forth. The moment you have that perception, you have that view, lot of amazing things are going to open up for you at that point in time. Something to keep in mind. So that's the first foundational thing of temple that has to be understood. Now, if you add in the component of pilgrimage, now depending upon the sadhana and all that, as I mentioned, in a traditional parampara, there will be a krama kind of concept. So when you actually go in the krama of that particular devata, definitely you can purify big aspects of your karma. A lot of energetic purifications happen at multiple levels. And quite often specific, now even to this day, a lot of sannyasis still have to go through that. They have to go through the, like Kerala sannyasis, matam and all that. They'll send the sannyasi margis to basically the 108 temples of Shiva, 108 temple of Durga. It's a very normal thing for them. And they have to do specific mantras, specific aspect and all that they have to do there. It's a very normal thing. So quite often the 54 Shakti Peeth and all that was very standard practice for any Upasaka. If you are a Shakta, you definitely have to go to 54 Shakti Peeths and all that from that perspective. Because you are purifying your energy, you're developing your own energy in a big way as well. That is also one of the things that happen. And the important thing is that when you do the pilgrimage of your Ishta Devata, now sometimes in some temples your Ishta might be a sub-deity also. But even then also you will see things improving in many ways. That's the other aspect also and so forth. So this Desha Devata concept or the temples linked to you in your home is a big concept actually. And to a point where whenever you are traveling, I always say, wherever you are at, even if you go to Hong Kong also, which is the biggest spiritual place there, you will be amazed to see that particular energetic linkage giving you blessings actually. You'll be amazed actually. If you go to Egypt and all that, visit whatever you see there, you'll be amazed without doubt. Of course, but in your own locality, right? Find the closest temple there. Start by identifying and going there actually, and you will be amazed. Most of the time, you will see if you're doing a particular upasana, one of those deities will be your upasana devatas. That's a very plain and obvious thing you'll begin to recognize. And quite often, when you establish that link and all that, you can get amazing things with that also. Very easily, you can see that. Yeah. So hopefully this covered. Now, power of pilgrimage has one more thing. So when you, quite often, depending upon your own karma, so they say the Panchketar temple circuit was established in Uttarakhand by the Pandavas so that so that they can purify the karma of having defeated, they killed their cousins actually. Now, and I think, of course, most of the time the temples might have yogic origins. So as Sri Guru mentioned, most of the time yogis have established a temple. They recognize the energy, so they created story around it to make sure who understand the energetic side, recognize the energy quickly and all that. You mentioned that in this video. That's what usually happens. So now, of course, the other thing also which is not recognized is that when you visit a temple, the story, the mythological story, the Stalapurana comes alive in your life actually. So, like Pushkar temple, famous the story is that Brahma had a trip with his wife Gayatri, and then Savitri was created so that the Homa could be completed and all that. And then eventually Gayatri comes in, curses the Devas, then leaves. Savitri blesses, okay, it won't be that bad kind of thing. And that's the story. So quite often people in love triangles and all that, you'll see a love triangle kind of thing happening when you go to Pushkar and all that because of that. Now, of course, you have to be in a relationship kind of thing in the first place, so that kind of thing. So if at all that is happening, you'll see that story coming alive for you, actually. And the very important thing also, these kind of stories are not mere stories. Of course, there is a yogic side to all the stories. There is an energetic side to it. You can even understand the energetic equation behind it if you carefully understand that. So all the stories are very living thing also. And each temple, a particular aspect of the story is basically captured. The particular energetic side of the temple. So Kerala and all that, you have the aspect of Bhadrakali, which is basically the Bhadrakali defeats Darukasur. And different stages of defeating Darukasur, you find specific Kali temples along with that. Kali is about to prepare for war. Kali is fighting the Darukasur. Kali defeated Darukasura and she's coming down and so forth. You find, so one temple, she's more benign, very calm, Shanta, okay, just about to be going to war kind of thing. And the temple, she's full on Ugra, extremely Ugra fighting midway and all that. So the energy is very strong. And the temple now, she's calmed down significantly, but still like, capable of giving you big kind of blessings and so on. So depending upon the energies which you want, going to each of those temples will help you to get that particular aspect of life very strong for you. Actually, very, very important aspect. So the Stalapuranas are not to be just thrown away. It's a huge point. That's another huge point. Once you understand that, a sadhak or a yogi will clearly understand, okay, this energy is getting activated here. I can clear out my tamasic things here very directly. This energy I can clear out my sattvic things. I have an intellectual problem. I'm not able to get this. So if I go to a sattvic aspect of this Devi, I can get it more kind of thing. So the Stalapurana story also becomes a very important thing going on. So that's also a very, very hidden point. Not hidden point, open secret as it's called. So when you understand that particular aspect, you can do more with that also. That is also one more thing that can be recognized. In fact, all the stories are, even if it be like, even the Santoshima was I think Santoshima is a new thing in which the story became big and then finally a temple created. So it still points to like an point and energy kind of thing which was captured and all that. So still very relevant. That energy would still play out actually because that energy was concentrated, maintained, and you're getting the blessings of that. So that is the other side of that also and so forth. Now, all upasakas eventually will have to maintain a pilgrimage to of their Ishta. So that is expected. That you have to do no matter what. It was a standard thing. And upasaka, like because you see this astrologically very clearly, Mars is getting exalted, but Jupiter is getting debilitated. And the balancing point of Mars is the Multragon Rashi of Mars, which is Aries sign. Exactly 9th house from that is basically the Bhagyastan, which is basically Sagittarius sign, literally linked with pilgrimages and so forth. 9th house used to be pilgrimage. And of course, in ancient times, temples were not just like places for worship and all that was happening. A lot of education used to happen around temples. Now, whatever you give to a deity, you get it 10 times back. So one of the best modern day remedies anyone can do is to build temples. Now, let me put it this way. One family built temples. They built a Hanumanji temple. So they built, their ancestor built a Hanumanji temple. There are two generations now. The Hanumanji energy is growing over a period of time. Hanumanji is the one who traveled. 2 generations later, the next generation, someone got a job in the central government very easily. The second generation, the descendant is basically in USA, studying some in automobile company back in USA. Very direct blessing of Hanumanji thing, you can see. So what happened here? You maintain the temple, the energy was maintained, that energy came alive, and literally you go that energy in the next generation. And this is a big thing, by the way. This is a huge thing, because most of the time you see this exact thing going on in almost all the cases. If there was a temple established for Saraswati, that temple as a Saraswati, suddenly you will find the descendant is actually having interest in movies and so forth. Like no one will want to feel like, no one will want to act in a movie thing or whatnot, unless you are extremely creative. But the descendant will be like, no, I want to be in the movies. I want to be out there. I want to be involved in that kind of thing going on. And that's one other aspect also to see. So if you build temple, it's a huge thing. And of course, if you find your Kuladevata, you understand who your Kuldevata is and so forth, you maintain that, you can bring that energy into your life very easily. It's already established that blessings immediately can be captured into and all that. But if at all you end up building temples, you can ensure that the next generation will get it in a big way. And now, used to be, the ancestors, someone would be a tantric, and when they would establish temple, whoever is linked to that original ancestor by blood would get direct blessings of that deity. That is the reason why Kuladev and Kuldevata has its own power. But of course, if you contribute to a temple as its construction also, it's still you're contributing towards in a building way. So that deity will definitely take care of you in a big way. One of the best things anyone can do because that is to actually help in the renovating of the temples around their home and all that, because that. No matter how small the temple, you're still contributing towards that. You're contributing towards this Saturn aspect as items or labor cost or whatnot, Mars items are building blocks. Now, sometime when new temple is getting built, if you can contribute towards that, the blessings are amazing. Blessings won't happen very quickly, but astrologically within 12 years, you will get some pure blessing of that deity from that moment when the temple is established. That can be identified also very easily. In fact, when you help in renovating of your own temples close to your home, or when you help in that, the Kshetram becomes stronger, and you will see direct things going on. Now, let me point a simpler example. When a temple in Chicago, they finally brought in a Kali Murti. They did the Pran Prashta of the Murti and all that. They started that. Literally that summer, people started doing yoga in that, like, the parks around that temple. Now, for a occultist person, they are very clear. Okay, the Mars energy came in the form of Kali. A Martian kind of energy got released to the community much more easily, and so forth. In fact, you will be surprised in Boston, like the place of Harvard and MIT and all, there is a Saraswati temple there. Think about that. Like, it has to happen there. That's the other thing also. So quite often when you have a temple, the very specific kind of energies can be brought from the higher dimensional world to this Bhuloka much more easy. And because of which it was a very old practice that if you had to write books and all, you'll go to a temple and write the books. So whatever activities you want to enhance, you go to the deity, contemplate upon the deity, and you will get the energies of the deity upon yourself, and then you release it to the world. It was a pretty normal thing actually. In fact, you want to launch a business, you definitely, and now here the other aspect also is there. I knew someone, this Vaishnav Devi is very famous Devi. So he had most of the people in Andhra and all that, a lot of people have a business contract with Tirupati Balaji. A percentage of their savings will always, 10% will just go directly to the deity. That kind of arrangement is established. Vaishnav Devi also, this man had an arrangement with that deity. COVID happened. He's delaying the payment. He's trying to find the best kind of way to do the payment and whatnot. And then, suddenly his wife is having panic attack. And twice they had to call the 911 in the UK and all that. And then, then finally nothing is going on. But the wife is having panic attack. She feels like she's dying right now and all that. So then he reaches out to me. Then I had to ask, is there any pending payment? She said, yeah, this Vaishnav Devi payment is pending. So you have to be cautious. Now, if you enter into Vaishnav Devi's payment is pending, is what he said. And I said, what are you doing? Do you know who you made the contract with? Devi might be compassionate, but her executioners or the bodyguards or her soldiers will not be. So clearly you could see that clearly it was a mother of the household who had a problem. So mother is a Devi problem because of that. So immediately it was a Devi issue going on. So it definitely was. Then the moment you did the payment, nothing, no issues from that point on. So quite often these kind of you are dealing with a living entity there, and you can do it for good and you can do it for bad also. But if you create something, you should not be screwing it up yourself. That's a big point. If you establish a contract with this deity, like, okay, goddess, if I get this thing, I'll come back and give this thing for you. You got that thing. If you not do it, then issues can come back your way in many ways. In some cases, if you have not acknowledged the deity has answered your prayer, it's a big thing. Now, most of the time, people go to the temples with an expression of like, I need this, please give me this in return. But the moment you go to a temple expressing gratitude, like, goddess, I'm got this, I'm glad, and thank you for this thing, whatever energy you're giving to the deity, that is amplified for you 10 times back. That's how it works, actually. If you give the emotion of God, I have this need, necessity kind of thing, which is a Saturn level prayer, you'll get a Saturn level blessings back. And that's the level at which you get. But the moment you're giving a full on emotional thing, I'm so happy, I'm so joyous, this kind of thing happened, please, it's a high level Jupiter level of prayer you're giving, you'll get a corresponding Jupiter level blessing back. That's the other thing that would happen. Now, the interesting thing that you will see is that most of the time, I mentioned this in passing, as Anirudh mentioned last time, a temple and the desha around the temple, the region around the temple is directly linked with the energy field of the temple, as I mentioned. Bigger temples will have an extended field. So entire Kashi is a big field of Kashi Vishwanath, without a doubt. So Madurai, as I mentioned, is Madurai Meenakshi, or even if you go to like Rameshwaram and all that, Rameshwaram, that big temple is the entire field and all that. Definitely you can recognize that kind of thing. And if you carefully look at the business establishments in a temple, and look at the energies that are happening, energy changes happening in temple. A new deity Pradishta has happened. Look at the temple is renovating. They decide to change the Shila width of the interlock tiles being replaced with the stone tiles instead. Suddenly you'll see the energy kind of thing changing around the deshas also much more directly. Now, one of the other fundamental things also is that how do you know if that energy of that, if there's energy in a temple or not? If your prayer gets answered in that temple, definitely you can say that energy is there. Most of the time, if a temple is flourishing, then most of the time that energy is being maintained is something you can say. But if you if you hear that most of the time, if the energy is very valid, it is capable of attracting whatever it needs for its own self-sustenance as well. This is a very normal thing. Or at the same time, if the temple trust people are coming to you and saying, oh, we are in debt and all that, immediately you know the Shakti of that temple is going down. A temple can never be in debt by principle. If there is Shakti in it, it just cannot go down. And that's a very direct aspect of any temple in general, especially if there is energy in it, without doubt. Now, energy can go down in many other ways. Maybe a ritual was mistaken and all that. And this is where normally in Kerala, you had the Ashtamangala Prashna done once in 12 years. So you would actually check through it. Is there anything new that has happened? Has any new energies come about for the temple where you have to establish new shrines? Or has the ritual been done in a more commercial way, which is now bringing them down? There used to be a temple there was a famous Hanumanji temple, which was completely renovated by Jayalalitha, became famous in Kerala. Actually, one small temple called Hanuman Koil and all that. So this particular temple, Jayalalitha came, she renovated the entire temple, put a lot of money into it. Temple became famous. She got her power back also. And now, interestingly, one of the rituals they started there was like they had a Muttarakal. They would smash the coconut in front of the Hanumanji statue. It was a very famous thing. Long queues of devotees and all that would happen. Eventually, did the Prashna and realized that Hanumanji does not like this anymore. He's a small shrine there, and Lord Rama is there. He's getting all the attention there. And the ritual has created an imbalance in that energy, is what they determined. Eventually, they had said this kind of ritual has to be stopped. Now, most of the time, this was the norm actually. Once in 2 years, once the temple was established, we'll definitely do a Swarna Prashna to see if anything needs to be changed, is the energies in check and all that and so forth. And this was the normal thing in almost all the temples actually. Now, at some point in time, I believe this has changed. This needs to be brought out back again. Without doubt, this will happen again also. Now, interesting thing is that one of the things the actual Swarna Prashna astrologers do is that they have to adapt it to the Desha Kal where they are at. So technically, an astrologer, even if you're a Kerala astrologer, he should be capable of predicting what should be happening in Bihar temple if he's invited to that land where the deity is established. He can understand that's how the astrology will work. That's how you have to recognize. You can do the moment when you do that kind of thing, the energies are getting purified even further also in many ways. Now, and to conclude, just to bring a brief conclusion here. Now, this is why the power of pilgrimage is huge. Like if the temple is close to your home, it's directly into you karmically. The temples have a very direct energetic field how you can modify your karmas, improve your karmas, purify certain karmas to the level of the energy of the devata and all that. And if you can develop your upasana thing more. Now this is a bigger thing that many people don't realize. Quite often when close by temples are having big changes to the garbhagriha. Now what I tell to whoever is that whatever donation you can do at temple, donate that, and you'll be amazed. Now one guy had a very complicated thing with Narasimha actually. He was like, okay, his Mars energy was off. He had some big issues with business kind of thing, all that. He tried to get in the Narasimha statue and some simple small temple somewhere in Hyderabad. He was trying to bring in the Narasimha Murti to a temple. That Murti, the guy would just forget to bring the Murti to a temple. It happened 3 or 4 times. Like the guy would say, come exactly on this day and all that. You'd go, you'd bring in the Murti and come. Literally things like that would happen. So literally what happens that your own karma will definitely get purified no matter what that happens. So very important thing is that what you have to recognize this fact when you're dealing with a temple. Anything with the murti, anything with devatas, you have to recognize this particular fact. The moment when you're institutionalizing an energy with puja padadis and so forth, the space around with that, there is an expansion of that energy that happens to the people around that place. So quite often when some temples are going through big renovations, people who are pure sadhaks can experience a hyper increase in their sadhana because of that. That's the other thing which you can experience if you want to. Like go identify some big temple. Now, most of the time, many of the kshetrams, a lot of sadhaks are done, a lot of mantras for their energy has settled down there actually. Because of which, you actually can, even if you step in a temple itself, you can get that energy there. However, if you decide to add in your own mantra thing to that place, the blessing, now you are going into that realm where you are getting additional blessings kind of thing. And this can be done and more. Sometimes the simplest Ashtodhara Namavali, if you do it from the Trikal time, do it, Ashtodhara Namavali, do it 108 times in a temple, be amazed at what you can get. Sahasra Namavali, do morning all day long, do it 12 times, 27 times, 100 times in a temple, you'll be amazed at what you can get. Because the deity is not going to ignore, oh, here is the Bhaktavas come and so forth. So they will clearly recognize the effort you're putting and have no doubt about that also. Whatever you do, the simplest thing you do in a temple, you'll always get it back. Now, the other aspect that happens is that when you actually do the sadhanas of the deity in the temple, you have to be very observant of the interruptions coming your way and whatnot. And that is also not by accident. If you are asked by a particular chapter, a particular nama, you are being asked by the security guard to get up and leave, or you are having some obstacle and whatnot, recognize all that. It's a very powerful thing. And as I mentioned, you have to treat it as a devata interacting with you at that point. And you will be amazed. So now the other important thing also, as I mentioned, that you will never, even the name drop of an devata is never an accident as well. So you have to pay very close attention to that as well. So like if someone mentioned a deity when you're talking about something, very good chance some karmic rana kind of thing might be happening to that deity as well. Something to keep in mind. So the moment when you understand that interaction with the deity is not happening by accident, you can utilize this at many levels eventually. And eventually it's like a relationship actually. You develop a link with that deity. Slowly that link enhances and purifies your karma. And you can take it to great heights eventually after that. And eventually your own karmic field gets purified the moment that energy field is getting better for you through your own sadhanas as well. So that is a bigger thing. That's the whole point of pilgrimages and having Ishtadevata sadhana and all that becomes very, very important. And as I mentioned, and when you do your Ishta and finally go to the temple, most of the time, eventually, mature Sampradaya will always have like some kind of temple linkage with the sadhana deity. That's a Upasana Devata thing will always have a mature thing will always be there. And then when you establish that link with that temple thing, it's a huge, huge thing also. Whoever is doing the sadhana of that deity, and whenever that temple would go through any kind of renovation or upgrade kind of thing, for whatever be the manner, exactly that energy will be reflected into all the sadhakas' life as well. So like if a temple finally they decide it was a stone temple, they finally decide to cover it in copper, whoever is linked with that deity will actually get the blessing directly. This was the reason why in Kerala and all that, a lot of tantrics would establish certain deity inside their home. And that whenever the home was getting upgraded, they'll get corresponding blessings very immediately because of that. You see that kind of thing going on. And of course, you have to maintain the energy, which is a different set of problems. So many people have forgotten that the importance of these deities, that importance of tantric was gone, tantric knowledge was misused, all that other practical modern day issues have happened, which is a real issue. But this was the logic for that. And so, and you could see that going on. And then eventually what happened is that when the power increased and so forth, then eventually they would have a better temple thing going on and all that. So in Kerala, what would happen is that most of the time Upasana would happen in a Moolasthana, in a home kind of thing. And there will be like an outside temple, which is basically more accessible to the public kind of thing. And the family is always linked with the temple because of that. A family of priests, a family of tantrics is always linked. That's a typical thing which you see in Kerala because of that. But of course, the Vedic temples are slightly different in their design. You have the Parnaprashta, it's open and it's this consecrated there itself. That's what usually happens. But that this thing is also something to recognize. So now, as I mentioned, once you, and the bigger thing is that if you get a dream of a deity and all that, never miss out on that opportunity. Go to a temple, pray, and find out why did that happen. And quite often it will be revealed with time. I know cases where like they had, literally a deity will come and say, give me my kurbani and all that. And then you had to go and give a kurbani to the deity, like a bali of a bakra and all that. They had to go give. They did not believe anything, but they had to go give because the deity came and dream and asked, and their daughter was in a, high-end surgery situation. So they had to go to that. Stuff like that also you have to pay attention. You cannot ignore those kind of things. That's right. So the power of a deity comes when you see these kind of things. Now, once you are in Upasamarga, you never ignore any deities. All temple deities are treated with respect. Higher dimensional being have access to higher dimension. No matter how small the deity appears, that is always recognized. But the important when you maintain a sadhana, you will see you are treated favorably in most of the temples most of the time. You will actually see that. You will actually feel that vibration. You will actually feel more of that energizing thing happening also. That's something to recognize. Yeah. So hopefully that covered some of the topics, at least some groundwork I put in right now. Hopefully that, but yeah, feel free to ask any questions. And
all three of us have questions for you. So Rahul Bhai, you can probably start.
Thanks a lot, Santhip. I think that was a whole lot of information. In fact, that created a lot of questions in my mind too. One of the things I want to start off by asking is how important are austerities when one is preparing, in the lead up to going to a pilgrimage? We know you spoke about like when we are there, what we do, but let's say a month or so, a couple of months before I know I'm going to say a Kamakya temple, what are the things that I should be doing in the lead up to that pilgrimage?
That's a very good question. One of the standard things to do, of course, is like if you can build up your sadhana level to any kind of some simple sadhana you're doing 40 days or 1.5 months before that is always great. The more you prepare for it, the much better, to be frank. In fact, this was a simpler principle actually. You would do a sadhana in your home, you would repeat the same sadhana in that particular kshetram, and then you'd come back and do the sadhana again back in the home. This was a pure principle going on. And what happens is that when that same sadhana is repeated twice in the home, but in between you go to a deities and do it, the deity will supercharge that sadhana and you will come back. So someone was actually telling to me they did this Vishnu Sahasranama chanting in Guruvayur from sunrise to end time kind of thing. They did like 27 times Vishnu Sahasranama and all that. And initially they had to read the book. They did it for 6 months and they did it, and they just read the Sahasranama from paper. By the time they came back, the entire Sahasranama was by hearted in their mind. It just happened by itself. So it's like it just happened by itself. Each time they would go, before they would start, they'd go do offer pranam, they will come back, do the sadhana, then they will go again, do pranams again, do sadhana again. It just went a repeated thing. Just by doing it repeatedly, like one whole day of Vishnu Sahasranama, that just got activated. And they were doing Vishnu Sahasranama daily to that point. And when they went to that temple, they boosted that sadhana in a big way. And then when they came back, they got the return. Like I said, Vishnu Sahasranama, big blessing actually. You can do more with Vishnu Sahasranama. I think there is a lot of, I think I made a video on that in another channel or something on that. But you could do more of that. So that's the other aspect actually. So this, so any kind of sadhana, the more you prepare, it's always highly recommended. But like I said, it's encouraged when you're there in the kshetram to focus on the sadhana thing more actually. That's one thing. Of course, lightening your body, all that is highly recommended. So your body can absorb more energies, fasting and all that, fasting and all that, as much as you can do. Yada Shakti, as they call it, highly recommended actually. That is also recommended. But more importantly, one thing which many people miss out on is that not visiting the close by temples for a safe pilgrimage. That is a mistake that many people do. So in Kerala and all that, you are expected to go to the close by temple, give some offerings, give some oil or ghee and whatnot to the close by temples near to your home before you embark on a big journey. So the Resha Devata and the Grama Devata concept is what you're looking at here. You're telling, oh, go to the biggest temple of your city, go to the close by temple to your home, and tell to both Devatas, I'm going on this journey, please protect me, have a big thing on. And that's the big thing, because when you go there, you will actually, because that deities boost is there, additionally, you'll get additional blessings back to you. And most of the time, what happens is that when you are set on a track, different kind of let's put it this way: the moment you decided to take a pilgrimage, from that point on, the karma of the deity has started to work. The karmic exchange has started to work. The karmic field has already started to interact with you, with your energy field, and all that can happen. So quite often, the thought itself will start the purification of karmas immediately after. So quite often, depending upon your karmic thing, suddenly you are having a new set of problems. Well, your karma is having challenges. So you have to work on putting additional effort. That's why going for the close by deities, close by temples to get help additional for that pilgrimage is also highly recommended. Of course, if you have that close by deity temple close to your home, much more recommended also. So definitely if you're going to Balaji temple, go to the closest Balaji temple to your city and then go to the main Balaji temple. You'll see it's much more easier actually. In fact, when you go to a smaller Balaji temple close to your home, you will actually see that the problems that have to be purified will actually come through at that point in time as well. So your priest is having a problem there, or you have a car brake issue, then you know what exactly that problem is going to amplify when you go to the main Balaji temple kind of thing. You can be prepared more also in that way. That's why they always encourage never to take. Now, having said so, if you are in a pilgrimage stan, if you are in Kshetram, that is also not by accident. That is the will of the deity for you to be there. If a deity, first of all, you need a permission of a deity to chant a mantra over the deity. Same logic applies in a temple also, in a Kshetram also. That never forget that. If you get an invitation to a temple, never ignore that. Usually that means that that deity wants to bless you is what it usually translates. Whoever it be, like even if you say in middle of nowhere you are in like UK or US and someone still tells go to Balaji or go to Kamakya, never ignore that. So that usually means that deity wants to bless you kind of thing and so forth can happen. So that's the other thing also you should not forget. So definitely you should prepare yourself as much as possible is what I would say. However, definitely add in a sadhana component to it, which you will repeat back when you come back from that temple as well. You will feel that very directly. Like I said, if that person remember the entire Vishnu Sahasranama, like which takes 1,000 names, right? So it's like you see that impact actually. So that's something I can always encourage. And did that answer your question, Ralji?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
Arjun, do you have a question or?
No, actually, I have a question from Anirudh. You have recently made the shift. You have just recently shifted your residence. So, which deity is around you? Need to know that. So, accordingly, Sandeep ji could give his some inputs regarding that.
Yeah. So
Which temple you have observed?
Yeah, look at the Google Map kind of thing, right? So of course, you can just look at that and identify. But without doubt, I've seen that thing going on. It won't be an accident. That's the first thing you have to recognize. It will never be an accident. Most of the time, depending upon the close by proximity, the temples closest to you, you can recognize the karmic energies you have to deal with as well. If you're close to the Devi temple, definitely like family energy kind of thing you can predict. If you're close to a Shiv temple, definitely you can predict the corporate karma, sun karma, leadership karma, and all that. If you're close to Vishnu temple, definitely more relative karma, more conflict karma, stuff like that you can identify, all that. Most of the time, this was the way how many of our ancients would actually determine their houses also. Okay, I'm the Upasaka, I need that temple close to my home. That's what they would decide. Because they need that boost kind of thing. They know they'll get that boost every day because of that. But of course, now modern day scenario. But having said so, I've seen there is a new phenomenon in which people are building temples these days. Or they at least renovating temples kind of thing. Big boost is happening on that front, which is a very powerful way again. So no matter what, you should contribute towards the festival of the close by temple no matter what. And you'll be surprised, like Karnataka, like the Devi, the Kali in Karnataka will definitely be acknowledged when you are in Bengal kind of thing no matter what. It will never, it will never go to waste. Let me put it that way.
True that. So I'll just add on to this point. So the nearest temple to me is in a police complex, and there is a Chamundeshwari temple. So
There
I'm
you go.
staying next to it from past 4 years, and after that only all that upasana has begun.
There you go.
So that there I could see the clear link.
Yeah.
So Anurag, still you have not told us which temple is near you now.
No, I was just surprised after Santipji. I'm surrounded by too many Hanuman and Vinayaka temples,
Yeah, there
and
you
one
go. So
Kali temple, and
yeah.
one Sai Baba temple.
There you go. So you can see all the linkage there. So Hanumanji is very direct link with Shani Karma. So lawyer karma you can see. Kali temple again you can see that. Vinayaka temple is also like starting initiatives that you can see. Establishing a big group kind of thing, which is Vinayaka, Gananayaka, right? That particular aspect also you can see going on. That kind of karma easily you can see that. So that's the other thing actually. And now you can do the same thing with many other places because the temple is close to your offices actually. Wherever your office is, look at the temple close to that. Look at the temple close to your spouse's home and all that. Look at the temples close to your fitness place and all that. You'll be amazed. You'll actually see it's directly linked. In fact, quite often, eventually, you'll get to a point where it's like the actual field of the temple thing, which is creating that institution or that business enterprise there in the first place. You can recognize that, and look, and more importantly, pay careful attention to the changes happening in these temples. And don't be surprised when good things are happening in your life when that temples are also increasing their energy. And believe me, that's a big thing. That's a huge thing. You can do. You'll be amazed to see the direct correlation. It's a pretty amazing thing. So, like as I mentioned, if the garbhagriha of a temple is changing, upgrading in one way or the other, you might see you are getting more knowledge and all that more directly because the sattvic region of the deity is improving. So your own knowledge aspect is going to improve significantly. And then definitely like the other aspect improving, like the outer side, the boundary walls are improving, steps improving. You'll see more stability happening in your career and all that much more easily. People are more stable in that part of the world and all that. That kind of thing you can see. And like I said, now one of the easiest way to improve your boost your karmas, no matter what is that, you go to a deity, you say you are my business partner now. Whatever money I earn, this is what you do. Now, in fact, in Chandi Upasana and all that, it's like a standard thing. You have to give whatever money you have initially, everything is deities, and then you have to receive it back. That's one of those things that happens in a Chandi Upasana. That's a very standard. Some deities you would want that. Whenever you get to that particular stage, you have to be willing to do that and so forth. There was a point in occult sadhanas or even tantric sampradayas where whatever you owned was once pledged entirely to your guru, and then you would basically take what the guru would give back to you. There was a time period like that. In ancient time, this was a norm actually. Even in other occult parts of the world, this would still happen actually. A very interesting and important point. There was a time period like that because they would definitely, if it's touched by a deity, definitely it will multiply tenfold. That's the other aspect as well. Not many people realize. So that's the other aspect. So and quite often, this is what many people do also. Still to this day, many people do it. And which you get huge blessing because of that. But even if you just start a business partnership, right? Like whatever aspect of life, I'm starting a new enterprise. This deity is my business partner. Like a living partner, you have to give the share and all that. Okay, this is the share which I do it. The more you treat a deity like an actual living aspect of your life, you'll be surprised by the impact you can get. And it can be huge. You can definitely do that in many ways, whether for your career or for your business or whether for any kind of enterprise, any projects you're beginning, you can do that and more. But yeah, the temple thing is huge actually. Like the moment you are linked to the temple, right? You have a routine of visiting those temples routinely. Slowly, the energetic linkage is happening between you. When the temple is improving, your own energetic thing will also improve, and you can see that happen directly. And when you go to the main Tirstan or that particular devata, like if a Shiva temple or Vinayak temple, you go to like say Mumbai or whatnot and all that, or Ashtavinayak temple or whatnot. Whatever the main Desha Devata or the temple, the Devata is, you can see big blessings coming from the land also, as I mentioned. So Desha Devata had its own importance actually. That has its own importance. So you can decode that particular energetic influence in life also much more easily. You have to recognize immediately when someone say they are from this particular desha. Immediately you know, okay, this is a blessing that is coming from this deity. This upasana is giving you this result kind of thing. You can immediately decode kind of thing also. That also helps you out a lot.
Santipji, I'll just ask something connected to what Rahil had asked you. He had mentioned Ma Kamakhya, so I'll just ask on that. You had mentioned that we should observe everything that happens when we are at the temple. So one of the things that all of us are generally advised to do is take as many pradakshinas of the temple as you can, as you chant her stotram. So how do you interpret this? That when you're taking pradakshina, this is something very commonly. I'm sure many would have experienced this. Small girls come and ask you for something as you're going around the temple when you're chanting. So how does someone acknowledge that, and what is the message there?
Yeah, you because it's a Devi, it's Kamakya and all that. You definitely have to interpret that as a Devi coming and putting that particular thought into your attention. Now, depending upon whether you can heed that girl's prayer or what, no, that's a different thing. That's a different thing. If the girl asks for money, giving it that is considered to be fine. Now, here's the other thing, which not many people realize. So recently in Kumbh Mela and all that, there was a big thing going on. A lot of people, there are people trying to do fraud and all that. They cheat you, take money away and all that. But then you forget you are going there to cleanse your karma. So how did you expect it to be cleansed? So like if someone is there recording you, your karmas are getting purified there. But you can do that consciously. Actually, like, this guy has come to you to like coming with fraud mentality and all that. Then you can purify that karma directly. That's the other side of it. Now, the other thing, as I mentioned, was that so if a girl comes, then definitely you have to interpret her as a Devi coming and telling to you at some point in time. That, of course, now you have to eventually you will recognize if it's a genuine thing or not. Like if something stuck in your mind. Now, quite often you'll be amazed actually. Sometimes these kind of interactions happening will be the deity will kind of show you an interaction, will kind of respond to the field, energy field which you yourself is carrying in your temple. That's an actual thing you'll begin to observe. So, for instance, if at all you are in a temple, you have a question, observe what is happening around you. So, like you'll be look at the content of the girl's speech. Is she asking for money? Is she asking for something else? Is she trying to sell you something? And slowly you can identify the energies behind that thing. Sometimes it's just okay, buy this. Let me put tika on you or whatever, right? Then that has its own thing. So compared to like someone who's selling you flowers or someone who's selling you something else, or someone just asking you randomly for money also has its own thing going on. And quite often you will see now the same thing is happening again and again. Then you have to recognize that as karma also at some point in time. Now the other aspect also, when you go to Kamakya and all that, what time of the day is the question being asked? Is the question being asked in the evening time or compared to morning time and all that? Evening time question usually can translate to some very deep old karma happening at the tamasic level, compared to a morning time question, which is like an open kind of thing which we have to deal with in the rajasic or the sattvic level kind of thing also. Noontime is usually considered to be like a rajasic thing, rajasic time. So something connected with work or some action and all that is where you will see that the question or that will come as more irrelevant. Morning time is more knowledge-oriented question because that's more the sattvic time zones actually. So like some knowledge, some intellectual clarity and all that you can get based on the question and content and all that. And evening time, of course, some negativity removal kind of clarity you can get based on that kind of thing going on. So that is a simple thing you can always do. And then, of course, pay attention to the color which the girl is wearing. Pay attention like which side she comes, if you can, left side compared to right side. All that you can pay attention to. Left side is usually like something from the past. Right side usually means something from the future. That kind of interpretation can be done. If you're aware of your breath also, like if the right nostrils are active when they come and ask you, that is a more relevant thing at that point in time. And they're coming on the side of the nostril where airflow is happening. That has its own depth. Without doubt, you can say there is an energy behind that question which you can confirm. At the same time, they are coming in a side where the nostril is not happening. Like you are breathing the right nostril, they come from left nostril. Then you know that there is some energy off with that question immediately also, whatever they're coming and asking. That's an easy way to judge if it's a relevant thing or not at that point in time. The other aspect is also, that's a traditional Swarya Yoga kind of thing, which you can see. Swarya Yoga, Shiva Swaradaya Shastra and all that is there. Very easy concept. Extension you are applying in a temple also. It has its own application actually. If your right nostril is active and then when the girl is coming on the right side, it really means there is an action-oriented thing out in the world and one aspect which you have to deal with. If a left nostril is active and they come at the same time, that means there is a healing-oriented, more nurturing, more caring, more emotional kind of thing you have to deal with based on the girl's question kind of thing as well. Very simple question. Now, this Shiva Swaradaya has its own extension. If your wife is not listening to you, good chance that she's on the side where your nostril, there's no airflow happening. If then you change yourself around to a point where the wife is actually on the side where your nostril airflow is happening, you'll see she's kind of interacting with you much more directly. It's a very simple thing. That's a Shiva Swaradaya thing. You can do that. So a lot of people use this to their advantage in many ways, but you can do this from an analysis perspective also. You can apply that. There's a lot more depth to it. A lot of sadhana, some yoga sampradaya also measure the depth and all that of the breath. Has it gone down all the way to Muladhara, or has it gone down only to Swadhisthana, or is breathing only to the Anad and all that is one more check thing which they do to identify the the tattva of the content at that point in time. The tattvic, the elemental level of that energy at that point in time can be checked like that. So that kind of thing can also be done. It's an interesting thing, but yeah, definitely don't ignore it. Young girl, definitely don't ignore it. Young girl and young boys and all, and definitely don't ignore that as a moment. You have to recognize the deity because they are more pure actually. They'll respond to the deity's energy much more purely. So you cannot ignore that actually. You have to interpret that as a thing. Of course, then if a sadhu also comes and asks something, you cannot ignore that actually. All that has its own relevance actually. That has its own thing. I mean, many third and all that you have to pay attention also from that point. From you, according to your ability, no matter what. Okay, great. Any other questions in mind? Yeah, go ahead.
Santhipji, how important is the bhava, the intention? Sometimes you have some sort of doubts in your mind when you're approaching your pilgrimage, and does that impact? I mean, I've personally felt that it definitely has had a negative impact if I've had any kind of doubts. But what are your thoughts on that?
Usually doubt energy is basically it's interesting actually. In the Durga Saptashati, the goddess has to take 13 chapters to defeat the sattvic demons and all that, compared to like the rajasic demons with one chapter, or the tamasic demon with one chapter with Kali, and Mahalakshmi 3-4 chapters and all that. So the doubt aspect is usually the bigger aspect actually. The intellectual challenges which we face in any endeavor we do is a very normally kind of heightened in any spiritual endeavor for that matter. So it's a default thing actually. So the doubt is always considered to be something that is bringing in confusion, something that is always not coming from a place of clarity. So you have to recognize that if you're going on a pilgrimage, or if you intend to go on a pilgrimage, if a doubt has come, then a karma, not a confusing karma at the level of intellect has actually come, is what you should recognize. And that means that, okay, you might have to do some more additional namavali, additional kind of stotrams and all that is what it usually means. Anytime you have any kind of doubt for that matter. So doubt is basically an intellectual kind of level issue which needs to be calmed down. Now, intellectual level issue is normally, now some people do say that if you most of the time the intellectual thing is having its own rajasic component and tamasic component, like an emotion is driving that intellectual thing and all that is usually what they say. Then you have to work at that deeply is what they say. So like if you let's put it this way, if you recognize the doubt aspect, recognize the nature of the doubt actually. Should I go about it or should I not? Or is it a proximity doubt, or is it a financial doubt, or is it like a job doubt and all that, right? That kind of thing. Now see, the big thing is that usually when you just approach a deity, okay, I just want to get darshan and come back, you're getting like 5% out of a kshetra. So now you will get still 5%, which is a very big deal for many people. Many people, 1% still is great. But if you're a sadhaka and you're having doubt, then you have to recognize that as a clear thing. So some level of Rahu kind of energy has come in at the intellect level is something you have to recognize. And then usually the standard recommendation to prepare yourself for that pilgrimage more actually. If at all a doubt shows. Some kind of stotram, some kind of namali, go to additional temples for support, as I mentioned, definitely use that and give offerings to that temple. So usually if you have doubt and all that, usually to calm down Rahu, Shani is used. So usually they encourage to donate oil and all that. A donation of the black sesame seed oil, gingerly oil, or the mustard oil and all that, they recommend that. So anything coming from black. Doubt is usually black color in its energy actually. So the doubt is that. Doubt is like, doubt is not a thing from clarity actually. So if there is a clear difference between a question asked from clarity or a question asked from a confusion aspect actually. I don't know what I want to do, what should I do, what should I do. That's like a lack of clarity. And of course, that's not a clear logical, the source is not logical, source itself is confusion actually. So those questions are not even valid. At the same time, if you're asking a question like, okay, do I have enough money for it or not? Or can I afford to go for it? That's a logical kind of thing going on from a different way. So you have to recognize that question deeply. And more importantly, if you identify the moment I think about this pilgrimage, if I'm doubting this thing, the default thing that is happening, your karmic equation with that particular energy form is not great. That's the reason why the doubt is also coming. At the moment when you actually start to balance that karma, so immediately you have to take additional steps for that deity, for that corresponding energy. So most of the time I encourage it's always a good idea to, at least engage in Namavali or the Sasanama, or even like the Puranas, the Puranic stories of the deity and all that helps you out a lot. The stories where that particular god or goddess is defeating a demon is a very powerful story, to be frank. In fact, I had someone just buy the Durga Saptashti book and just keep it in their son's room. 1 year later, the son came back home before they had big issue and all. Just by keeping that book in the son's room itself was powerful. Even if you just interact, so any interaction you have with the book of that particular deity will help in purifying the doubt. So doubt is usually a Rahu Mercury level solution problem. Solution to that is basically Jupiter action. So Jupiter is like basically a book or a story of that deity, or an actual sadhana, or a bigger stotram, or like a Sasnamali, or that kind of thing, Ashtotra Namali kind of thing going on. So it becomes very important to recognize that that energy is there. I have to work on it, and so that I will go there. Now, most of the time, this kind of thing was also taken care of when you go to a temple. Normally, you would go to the guardian of the temple first. So basically, in Kashi, you have to go to the Kalbhairav temple first, and then go to the main devata. So these kind of doubt and shallow energetic issues would be usually taken care by the guardian deities very quickly. So most of the time, doubt is coming from a different thing, like a tamasic source of fear or something, and then moment that is removed, the doubt is also quickly cleared. So many times, most of these temples were designed originally circuits actually. So you have one temple you have to visit and go to other temple, and even Kashi Vishwanath was a big thing. Like there's like 108 temples around Kashi or whatnot, which you have to go, and Kashi Vishwanath at the center of the final thing, and all those things like that going on in Kashi actually. So usually when you do the circuit aspect of that particular devata, that also helps out, and so on. So but definitely, if you are doubt, I would really encourage to do sadhana with a lit diya. Make sure you're donating the Jupiter like ghee kind of items to a close by temple. Even like offering leaf kind of offerings, whether it's tulsi leaves or like whether it's bilwa leaves and all that to Shiva and all that, or even to Krishna and all that, I would highly encourage. I would recommend the Krishna kind of deity, or the leaf kind of offerings to deities more when you have doubt specifically, and doubt, and try to attend arti of a deity. It's also one more solution I can get. Be in a temple when the arti is happening. Doubt is like a point where like light is meeting the nighttime kind of thing. So nighttime energy can be considered to be doubt. So if you're present in a temple when the arti is happening, when you attend the arti, when you come out, then you will see it's not that bad also. But it's a sadhana thing. You have to be prepared in the sadhana way. That's also one more thing you see. Doubt is a very normal thing you have to overcome, in my opinion. But it's a very standard thing which will come your way no matter what.
Sure. Thank you.
Just one thing, Sandeep ji. When we visit a temple by ourselves, and when we are going to the temple with our guru, the type of energy which you feel from that same temple would be amplified when you are going with the guru. Any particular thing or any observations you want to put forth on this point also?
No, that's a great point, Arjun, because like a temple is basically a Jupiter place, a place where Jupiter energy is more stronger. So Jupiter is quite often linked with the Akash Tattva in general. Guru is the holder of the Akash Tattva for many sampradayas. So they make sure the Devata energy is coming through and maintaining the elements of the sadhana and all that for the sadhakas or for the shishyas kind of thing. That's a big thing. So when you're going to with a temple with a guru, it's like amplified even quickly. The energy is even amplified. So what you could have received with just it becomes immediately 9x just because you're visiting a temple with a guru. Now this can be all kinds of gurus. This can be your direct guru. This can be your a spiritual friend guru. This can be like a Brahmin or so forth, or whatever, or the great some other Jupiter in energy, all that. But if you're going with a mantra guru to a temple of the Devata, without doubt, it's 9x kind of thing. It's very direct 9x kind of thing happening at that point in time. And whatever the Guru Upadesha happens at that temple is literally the deity using the Guru to make sure you get that mantra also. That's a big thing that happens. Now the deity is always paying attention, who is doing what and all that. They are always aware who is doing what, which sampradayas come in and all that. They always know that kind of thing. They keep track of that kind of thing anyway. So you can always see that in mind. And the gurus will usually take you towards temple, which is very relevant for you from that aspect. I've seen that becoming very important. It's a very interesting point actually. Quite often when you visit very specific kind of places with your gurus, it usually shows a very old pastoral link also when you go visit specific temple. So in fact, in there is a nakshatram called as Mula Nakshatra actually. Mula Nakshatram is actually supposed to be the Mulatrikon portion of Jupiter in Jyotisha. So like Jupiter balances itself there. And it's happening in the Dhanu Rashi or Sagittarius Rashi, which is the natural ninth of the zodiac, which is connected with pilgrimages. So this was a pilgrimage with the Guru was a standard sampradaya thing of no matter what. Even in the Chinese, the Taoist tradition also, there is a tradition. You have to go to 5 different places and get blessing and all that is there. It's a very standard thing. Warriors pilgrimage is what they call it. So you have to go to each places and learn a specific aspect there and so forth. It's same thing would happen. Of course, the Guru would basically, Guru is expected to eventually take you towards places which is recommended for you, no matter what. That's also highlighted. And different Gurus will kind of point you towards specific kind of regions also because of that. Most of the time a traditional guru will one way or the other imbibe the other thing which I mentioned. So most of the time they'll be close to one of these big temples and all that. They'll be not far off from any temple. Usually that's the case. A deity is always close to watching some of these old guru paramparas to be frank. That's something you'll always see no matter what, So it's a very standard thing. And that Desha Devata of that particular location has significantly impacted the Guru Sampradayas also. Without the ashram in that particular Desham and all that is kind of directly linked. So which makes it much more important. So if the Guru takes you to close by temple where that Guru is, definitely the power is amplified because that already the linkage is there with the parampara and the temple. Already that energies are amplified. And when you go there, you get more out of it also, and so forth. That's also the other thing that happens. So a very important aspect from that perspective that cannot be ignored. And in fact, it is highly recommended. Even the same thing whenever the Guru comes to your city or something, definitely take it a point to take the Guru to the close by temple as well. And you'll be amazed with that thing also, which is a natural thing anyways. A lot of Indians, that's the standard thing you do with relatives and all that, which they do. But then, when you do that more with the Guru, it's even heightened actually, without doubt. Now, most of the time, if you're told you have an opportunity to visit a Tirthistan with any Guru, you cannot ignore that. I cannot say that enough. Now, if the moment you do that, the Guru will of course carry a field around themselves, which will be a direct way how that interaction will also come through. The deity will use your Guru to pass on much more information to you than directly to yourself, because the field that deity has access to you is a big thing going on actually. And quite often, it's very common thing. Many gurus will pass on very specific kind of knowledge to different shishyas and all that, and different stance and all that because of that actually, because it's a past life karma that shishya or that the student and whatnot, it will open up many channels like that. It's a very standard thing actually, and so forth. So it's a very good thing also in many ways. So usually it's highly encouraged to do pilgrimage with Guru whenever possible, and you can always count the blessings of it without a doubt. Especially like the temples closely linked with that Guru Parampara. Usually there will be a link. The Gurus in some cases would ask you to do specific pilgrimages also, which becomes very important. That also purifies a lot of karma. So what happens is that the Guru will recognize, okay, you need that particular Devata's energy more. So definitely you have to go get darshan, do specific sadhanas and so forth. As I mentioned in even specific, like for sannyasi people and all, that's more hardcore. Like they are really each akada and all that, they'll have their own rules, go to this temple, do this thing and all that. Becomes more direct actually. And depending upon the Upasana Devata, they are expected to do pilgrimage and do specific sadhanas in different state, Tirthistan kind of thing as well. So that there is a pure thing going on with that also in that point. Most of the time I've seen, but the bigger thing I would say is that sometimes when you go to Tirthistan and when you buy a book which is recommended by a guru, now you are getting the Jupiterian aspect in more pure fashion also from that perspective. It can be a book, can be like a mantra thing, or can be like a good mantrobdesham, all that kind of thing will have its own impact actually. Very, very pure thing that can happen when you travel with a guru and all that. Yeah, quite often if a guru advises you something in a Tirthistan which is different, it is almost like the deity using a guru to make sure you are knowing that aspect. That's also one more thing you have to recognize. So that's the other aspect you should recognize with time. Yeah.
Santhip ji, we have one question. As we have gone a lot of depth, you set a context perfectly well. A lot of these planets we say are governed by a particular devata, like Mars is governed by Hanumanji, Bhairava or Skanda, based on how it is, what the Bhava is. Rahu can be either Bhairava or Ma Durga, so on and so forth. So, how did we arrive at these devatas having the ability to control these planets?
Yeah. So So most of the time, what has happened in India is that, or even in any Turstan kind of thing, if you go to, you find that initially there is a one primary energy. So like even if you go to like say Mahakal in Ujjain or something, Mahakaleshwar in Ujjain, you find there's a Mahakal thing there. Mahakal has its own shivling and all that, biggest shivling there is there. But then more outside around that, you find other small shivling. There is like a shivling for even Brihaspati there. There is even a different kind of shivling. Mangalnath has its own shivling there, stuff like that. So you find a variety of devatas clustering around a main deity in general. So that is the first thing. So one of the standard process that happens that when a devata is established in a particular location, when that energy is established, many other energies similar to that deity or that energies that can hang around the deity will come about as well. So that is one of the first things to recognize. So same things happen with in India and all that. In Bharat kind of thing, what you see happening is that similarly multiple sampradayas have flourished around the Tirthan. A temple might be there might be one temple there, but then you might find 12 or 13 different ashrams or different paramparas there going. So quite often you will find an energetic similarity kind of thing happening just by virtue of that Tirthan kind of thing going on. Now, of course, most of the time, one primary rishi or one primary yogi might have been establishing a particular temple, but around that energy field, especially if there is a knowledge component to that energy field, which is always there, when that is tapped into, that will eventually bring about other kind of knowledge streams or other kind of field of knowledge and information around that particular field. So this particular thing is a very normal process, and as a knowledge energy matures in a particular region, where a particular information field around a kshetram builds up, and that slowly attracts other kind of gurus and other kind of sadhaks to that particular location, so that they can kind of begin to interact with that field in a more direct way. Now, what is interesting is that grahas are considered to be much more lower in the hierarchy of energies, actually. And but no matter what you see is that at all hierarchy level, you're seeing like the energetic similarity happening at multiple levels. So most of the time when a devata comes, they say there is a parivar devatas, the Ankupanka devatas, or even like the Nirmalya Dari as it's called. That's a famous concept, important concept, like the main assistant of the devata and all that. So that kind of concept happens. Depending upon the main devata whom you are doing aradhana for, they will also have other kind of aspects. Now, different vidyas will have their own guardian vidyas also, a gatekeeper vidyas as it's called. So gatekeeper gods are there in many sampradayas. Bhairav is a very famous gatekeeper for many vidyas and so forth. Kali is a gatekeeper in Shividya and all that. In her own vidya, Bhadrali Vidya, additionally, she might have another deity as a gatekeeper and all that will be there. Very standard thing. So quite often you will begin to see that the fundamental energies are always the same as far as functions of that energy is concerned for any devata. There will be a very fundamental aspect of that energies which needs to be dealt with. There will be a guardian deity, there will be like an assistant deity, there will be like a main deity close to that deity, like a family deity or so. There might be like sister sibling deities kind of thing and so forth as it's called and all that. So let's put it this way, you can consider like Skanda, if a Murugan temple is there, definitely there will be a Pratishtha for Ganesha also. So because Ganesha is a sibling of Murugan. So that kind of aspect is there. So that particular energetic linkage is always there for all deities, no matter what. So there will be like a Mars energy aspect for that deity, which is the guardian aspect of that deity. There will be like a main assistant aspect of the deity, which is the servant of the deity, which is like the Saturn aspect of the deity. And quite often you will see like the main Vahana of the deity. So like in Shiva, you have the Nandi as the Vahana, and in Ganesha, you have the Mushika as the Vahana, or Skanda, you have the peacock, and Lakshmi as the owl, and all the various Vahanas are there, and so forth. Vahana might have their own aspect going on. Like they might have their own shrines, their own temples kind of thing going on as well. Or they are quite often in a specific devatas, you might also have the sibling deities. So like for Mars, let's put it this way, the Murugan has Ganesha as the sibling deity, and you can say Lord Ram, Sri Ram has Lakshmana as a sibling deity. Now Sri Ram, as in Kerala, you have the Nalambalam, where Sri Ram's other deity, other brothers are also worshipped. You have a temple for Shatrughna, you have a temple for Bharadan also. You have temples for them also in Kerala. So there are each deities would have their own corresponding energies in general. So now, quite often you can link that at a planetary level very easily. So, like for Kashi Vishwanath, the Kal Bhairav in Kashi is a guardian deity. So immediately you can consider that energy to be like a Mars Rahu aspect for that main deity. For Lord Sri Ram, Hanumanji was the greatest devotee and greatest servant. Immediately you can consider him to be the Shani aspect of Lord Ram kind of thing going on. And even in Shiva Sampradaya, as I mentioned, Ganesha removes the obstacles. He's the first deity to be appeased. So he takes care of a lot of tamasic kind of issues in a big way. So he's the first deity. So he's basically considered he's the deity to whom we are doing the offerings of black sesame seeds, so that Saturn and karma is kind of removed. So what is happening essentially is that in many sampradayas, depending if you're a Vaishnava Sampradaya or a Shaiva Sampradaya or a Shakta Sampradaya, of course, Shaktas will have their own deities, like, Bhadrali might be the Shivavidya Marga, you'll have the Bhadrali as the gatekeeper whom you have to appease initially, or Durga as the gatekeeper you have to appease initially, and only then you get to the other Vidya Devatas or other wealth Devatas and all that usually comes. So eventually what happens is that, well, you might have a temple for, say, Vinayaka in a particular place. But then the Vaishnava Sampradaya people will come there, they'll recognize that Vinayaka energy, tamasic energy is more. Immediately they'll establish Hanumanji temples there. Or they'll do Hanumanji sadhana, other kind of things, what will happen. Because that's the energy which they are carrying. They'll kind of feel that energy, more abundance of that energy is there. So they'll kind of utilize that energy is much more accessible in that particular sthana. Then they go to like a temple where Lakshmi Devi is present. So then, in Vaishnava Sampradaya, definitely Lakshmi energy is there. But a Shakta Sampradaya, they might actually worship like, Mahalakshmi or some other Mahishasura Mardini or Chamundeshwari or some other version can happen like that. Or in Shaiva Sampradaya, they'll be like, okay, we need to worship Nataraja kind of aspect more, and that kind of aspect should be celebrated more. Or they might even say we need to have Skanda kind of thing going on more there and so forth, because that is the energy which they perceive there actually. So there's the other thing also which you can see. If you are in a particular Desha Devada, if you identify one main temple, pay attention to other Sampradaya temples around actually, not an accident. Quite often there will be an energetic similarity going on there. However, this need not be the only case. So quite often what happens is that, now it's very interesting actually. Definitely in Jyotisha and all that, definitely in Tantra also, specific deities are clearly called out. Like tamasic deities are clearly called out. Tamasic deities in the creative scheme of things are clearly called out. Tamasic deity in the destruction scheme of things are clearly called out. Tamasic deities in the maintenance things also interestingly called out. Now, of course, tamas is destructive aspect for sure, but there can be a tamasic deity more destructive, or tamasic deity slightly more creative, or tamasic deity more maintenance kind of thing can also happen. That's the other thing. So subtleties of the deities can come about depending upon the field. Now, in some places, eventually you will recognize the energy of that location with time. So it's one of those things. Look at the institutions that are happening in a particular land, for instance. So it's a common example. A five-dimensional energy of a deity was established in that particular land. Let's say there was a goddess worshipped at a very Uttama level, like in a Sattvic way, deity was worshipped, like pure the Nivedyam that was offered was pure Sattvic in nature and all that. Eventually, say for some reason or other, the temple was not being able to maintain. They had to finally disperse that energy for some reason, but that energy vibration will still be there. So quite often you will see in a normal human thing, that location will attract a lot of educational places. That location might attract astrologers, tantrics, or ashram people, and all that quite often there. So sometimes certain energies might be inherently present in a particular location. Now, in some cases, in the place, the deity might have been worshipped in a more tamasic way. So blood is being offered as food and all that. So more Ugra Devada kind of thing was worshipped. And quite often that location will attract other kind of institutions, which is more fierce. It might attract an army camp. It might attract like sports people and all that might happen there and all that from that person. Or like it might attract the police station kind of thing and all that might happen there. So sometimes you see sometimes a particular location can attract very specific kind of deities, which is a normal thing because the ancient yogis recognized there is some energy that was inherently there in that particular location. They would try to develop it further. But then, of course, other auxiliary energies will also come about that. So even if you have like, Hanuman, if you have a Sri Ram temple, Hanumanji has to show up there. So that kind of thing usually you see. So eventually you find that out. So like if you have a Krishna temple there, eventually there'll be Radha kind of thing showing up at some point in time. It's a very normal sequence of energies that should eventually shows up. So what happens is that different sampradayas will connect with that energy in a different way. So it's like it's an energy thing which is reflected in that sampradaya, and each sampradaya will kind of capture that energy in their own ways. Is what usually happens. Now the interesting thing you find is that in India, in at least in India, the good thing was that a lot of sampradayas were allowed to flourish. Actually, it's like there was no the more variety actually helped the entire thing to sustain. The energy was maintained no matter what. If one temple did not do the thing, well, if the one temple had a problem, the other auxiliary things helped the temple energy to grow further. And now quite often you see this happening in many temples thing actually, like a big festival is happening. Usually the procession from local temple also goes to the main temple. So it was a way to unite that energies of that particular desham in many powerful ways. And that helps in maintaining that energy in a much more stronger way. Now, the other interesting thing, as I mentioned, is that of course, once you identify Hanumanji is doing the same protection thing for Ram devotee, or Bhadrali is protecting that for the Devi devotees, or Bhairava is protecting that for Shiva devotees, and so forth. And eventually, you begin to recognize the protection aspect much more easily. And great yogis eventually develop that protective field in much more direct ways. So they clearly recognize that. And now, interestingly, you see that in specific regions, specific set of energies became more popular. Because which the planetary linkage, the same function is being served by a particular deity. So lands where the Devi energy was more dominant, Mars became linked with Bhadragali. Lands where Sri Ram energy was dominant, Mars energy became more linked with Hanumanji. Lands where Mars Shiva energy was dominant, Bhairava became very dominant there, and all that. That's to capture the Mars energetic aspect is what happened. Now this is a very fascinating thing, because in ancient India you had a lot more things going on that front actually. So Kashi was definitely designed as designed in a much more deeper way. It was purely designed. I think Shri Guru mentioned in one of his videos that even like there was a highway from Kashi to Rameshwaram in ancient times. Like, I mean, that's wild if you think about it. It means that Jyotirlingas were actually connected. So it's a pretty amazing thing to think about. So it means that there was the linkage between temples and linkage between different deshams and the devatas were, in ancient time, it was kind of understood and developed in much more deeper ways. So what was basically, as I mentioned, Martian energy kind of thing, and to recognize the guardian aspect. The Hanumanji is protecting the devotees of Sri Ram. All the Ram Bhakts are being protected by Hanumanji, and Goddess Kali is protecting all the Devi devotees and all that. Eventually, when that linkage was happening, like when yogis would travel from India or to Kashi to South India and all that, much more Rameshwaram, all that much more regularly, they could understand the guardian aspect much more easily, kind of thing. And so they eventually, from a Graha perspective, it eventually came to a point where, okay, Mars can be linked with Hanuman, and Mars can be linked with Bhairava, and Mars can be linked with Kali and all that. Now, having said so, Mars does have different aspect actually. So Mars in a masculine sign will have its own difference compared to Mars in feminine signs. So Kali, a female warrior, will still be feminine in her nature compared to male warrior like Murugan or Kartikeyan. So that masculine aspect will still be there. Hanumanji is still a masculine warrior actually. So that masculine aspect of Mars will still be there no matter what. And they say there is a difference between Hanumanji kind of Martian thing and definitely a difference between the Narasimha kind of aspect also. Narasimha is also Mars from that perspective. But Narasimha carrying that, coming from a Vaishnava Sampradaya, will definitely be having a more sustenance energy dominance compared to the destructive aspect that is more dominant in Bhadrakali. The Kali is more destructive in her Martian application compared to Narasimha will be having that sustenance aspect a little bit more and all that. And the creative aspect of Mars is definitely there also, so which is a more divine aspect of Mars. But Mars being a tamasic graha, you begin to see that particular different devatas coming from different sampradayas and so forth because of that. So each sampradaya had a particular focus, which also eventually had to take care of Martian deities no matter what. And all the elements had to be taken care of eventually. All the graha energies has to be present in all the sampradayas no matter what in any karma. So you have the lower level kramas, as I mentioned. So the one sampradaya will have specific set of deities in lower krama, medium krama, and the higher order krama, you'll have different set of deities. No, all sampradayas will have energy focus from the kundalini from root chakra, top chakra of the focus. So eventually that unity was recognized. So eventually you had a plethora of deities for the same graha is what eventually happened. But there's a lot of subtleties to it, is something I want to say. So you could say that maybe it's a Mars thing. Eventually you'll see that. But to get to that conclusion though, you have to be exposed to different sampradayas. That's a big thing. In this day and age, that can happen. Not many people if you say Mars is only Hanuman or Mars is only Kali, that's also that's also wrong to be frank, because you might find that particular needs are taken care of in a different sampradaya also, to be frank. So something to recognize also in my view. So just, but yeah, hopefully I think Anirudh got skipped off or whatnot, but yeah, but hopefully that answers that question.
So he has just messaged us. He'll be able to join us in the next 10 minutes. Till that point of time, Sandeep ji, I do have a question. That is pertaining to we have heard in the circles there are certain physical features by which generally the gurus or the advanced practitioners may tell which deity would be the right fit for that particular individual. And I'll bundle up this question with a couple of related questions itself. Other things we have heard, the planets also impact the physical appearance of a person. And now, again, coming back to the sadhana aspect of things, how, and we have heard in the circles itself that there are certain signs on the physical appearance or physical body itself that may indicate the progress in sadhana itself. So, if you could please throw some light on this.
Yeah, so physical appearance can definitely help you out a lot, to be frank. So there are different levels at which the physical levels can be interpreted also. So people of particular, at the graha aspect, definitely a dominant graha in the chart. Say you have sun in the chart, you might have the native might have a bald hair kind of thing, because dominant sun, they look very bright, their head is shining, all that. So dominant sun kind of thing. A Shani on the chart, they usually make the native very lean and tall and all that. Sometimes Jupiter on the chart may make the native very fat and plumpy. Kapha planets like Moon, Jupiter, Venus will make that person a little bit more chubby kind of thing. The Martian planet is very athletic, very sharp, very muscular kind of appearance can happen. Very soldier-like appearance can happen. And more beautiful kind of planets are like Venus and Moon, to be frank. Sun to a point is also very charming, very attractive kind of thing. They are very physically attractive kind of thing also. And they are a feminine kind of way, Moon, Venus kind of thing, very feminine planets, all that predictions can be made. Mercury can be very, what do you call it, shorter natives usually, like more childlike appearance, youthful kind of thing, all that is there. Definitely that interpretation is very valid in nakshatra level as well, to be frank. So some natives say they have one of those rabbit nakshatras dominant, like say Jeshta or Anuradha, their face will be more like a rabbit kind of face. Some natives Kritika or Aries kind of thing at the Rashi level, a face might look like a sheep or a goat or something. You'll see that often. Some natives will look more like a fish actually. They'll have dominant Pisces kind of thing going on. The models and all that, they'll look like fish actually. You'll actually see that. Some of them will actually look like a lion actually. They'll have this particular big hair and all that more dominantly. So, they carry lion energy. A lot of James Bond actors apparently were very masculine. There are a lot of planets in Uttarafalgi Nakshatra, which is a bull nakshatra, and so forth. So definitely there is a key link between appearance and the Jyotisha aspect, without doubt. So multiple levels of Jyotisha appearance you can link. Graha impact upon the appearance can be seen. Rashi aspect can be seen. And even the Nakshatra aspect can also be seen. All three aspects have their own link going on from a Jyotisha perspective. Now, of course, the deities can be directly linked with the grahas as well. So specific grahas, as I mentioned, Mars can be linked with Hanumanji, Mars can be linked with Kali, or Mars can be linked with Kartikeya as well. So quite often, various deities can also be linked with these particular grahas. So quite often, one of the things that will happen is that a Martian person, a person who's carrying the qualities of Mars in their facial features and whatnot, is more likely to worship Hanumanji or Kartikeya or Kali kind of thing, because they already have a default affinity towards the deity. The deity's energy is already there in the physique actually. So already that energy can be quickly accessed by the native because of that. They already had a default thing as that. And so forth. Now the bigger thing of this thing is that most of the time, this is the actual principle. Like one of the concepts they say is the standard concept they say is that samashti and vyashti, like the whole deity is together and the individual atma kind of thing which is linked with that deity. So like in the Shividya Marga, they usually say Lalita is the whole, all the universe as Brahman kind of the Brahmanda kind of thing, and the Pindanda is the individual, the macrocosmos, the microcosm which is linked and all that. So that is also very default concept there. All the deities are linked to the individuals like that going on. Now, in that concept, there is an actual very interesting concept out there, which is very fascinating. Now, one of the interpretations which I've come across this is that there is an aspect of in a higher dimensional world, like say this is a 3-dimensional 4D world, maybe in a very higher dimensional world like a 5D or a 6-dimensional level, it is one god or a goddess who is expressing their own various aspects into multiple aspects of Bhuloka. And all that aspect is directly linked to that particular original god who goes through various aspects of their life and so forth. And then they experience the 4-dimensional Bhuloka kind of thing through their various versions of themselves. And eventually that, until each of them finally unite back to that higher dimensional self through their sadhana. Which is a very interesting kind of concept, you see, which means that all the upasakas of a particular devata can be directly linked with a devata at one point. Now, this is what makes it more interesting, because now if you are an upasana every time you're doing upasana of a particular devata, that energy is coming, interacting with you, leaving, higher dimensional energy comes, briefly hold it, you experience that, you go, and then more sadhana you're doing, eventually it will actually come your way, actually, which is very interesting, actually, something. So it is one other aspect you see going on from that perspective. So one interesting thing that happens is that eventually that energy will kind of be interacting with your field a lot. That energy will be initially the energy interacts with your aura, it penetrates your aura, it eventually penetrates your other deeper emotional, mental aspects of your being. You'll emote like the deity, you'll become quickly anger like Kali, you'll be quickly anger like Bhairava, and all that will happen. Eventually, your physical appearance will also start to reflect the energetic features or the physical features of that deity. If someone is becoming that, the Bhairava thing, they will actually, eventually with time, they'll be looking like Bhairava. Now, what happens here is that quite often, whatever upasana of the deity they're doing, that physical features of the deity will also slowly start to manifest in that upasana. Of course, experienced, if most of the time when you're doing a sadhana, this is not a first lifetime you're doing the sadhana of a deity. So it's a very normal thing to have that energetic thing show up in the, showing up as facial features or other features in the body and all that. Now, of course, the Buddhists actually use this particular point to identify Rinpoche and all that at a young level itself. Like one of the things they say is that I met with a Rinpoche once when he had come to visit one of these universities where I was at. He basically said that when he was a child, the Buddhist, his parents, of course, being Buddhist, took them to a Lama, and then they recognized that there was like a white thing that was going about his body. They could see that white light thing just literally going across his body when the child was brought in. Then immediately the Lama recognized this is a Rinpoche reborn. He was given the training and all that going on. So there was an energetic aspect that many other traditions utilize in a very normal way. It's like normal in the Buddhist traditions and so forth, Tibetan Buddhism and all that, pretty normal thing that happens. So one of the things that actually happens is that when you do an upasana of a deity, slowly that energy becomes replicated in the physical body. Advanced upasakas, because they begin to see, because they are around the same kind of upasaks kind of thing, they'll quickly able to say, okay, you look more like this particular deity, you should do that particular sadhana with the deity kind of thing because of that. But this does happen though, to be frank. Now, what makes this very interesting is that eventually you can recognize a lot of sadhanas based on the face of which they carry. So as an astrologer, you definitely see similar features upon the same people with similar chart. The facial features will very look similar and all that and so forth. But this thing applies at the sadhana level also, is a big thing. So of course, when you're chanting the same mantra, your mouth movements and all that happens in a particular way. So that can eventually change your facial appearance also with time. That's also expected. So eventually a same mantra done over a long period of time will also change your facial appearance to that of that deity whom you are doing. So eventually your Ishta will literally become like you. You will eventually become like your Ishta is what they say. So advanced upasakas, because of that, most of the time when they're looking at a person and saying you must be doing sadhana for this deity, most of the time it is not because they have some special eyes and special gift, third eyes, they can tell that. Most of the time they're looking at physical features and just making comment like that. Oh, you're doing this upasana kind of thing. And most of the time the upasana will also be reflected in the eye kind of thing also. Like the Shakti which you carry will be visible through the eyes. That's the other aspect also which happens and so forth. So they'll get that sense and so forth. And of course, you can always look at the physical body features and also like make some predictions like that. That's also one more thing that can be done. Again, like I said, it's a big thing. And as I mentioned, this information is quite powerful actually, because you can very quickly advance if you know different things. And so certain gurus will very quickly tell you which deity you have to do upasana for and all that, because that quite often will match. Now definitely it is a very powerful thing. I would always encourage to now, of course, the starting point for many people is like, okay, Hanumanji is muscular, let me go to the gym. But then you do Hanuman sadhana, eventually you'll go to a gym no matter what. That's what will end up happening also. And so the same thing will happen to other guardian deities also. If you're doing Bhairav sadhana, very guardian deity, you'll definitely feel like learning Bhairav sadhana, weapons which Bhairav carry, that kind of thing you'll want to learn more. So knowledge with the Vidya aspect is already developed. But that eventual integration with physical aspect can also come, which should not surprise anyone. And so it's a very common thing with advanced upasakas also. You will see their faces literally reflecting the energy of the deity. Now, let me put it a different way. You look at a Bengali person, you quickly know this person from Bengal. Look at a Rajasthani person or Gujarati person, you know quickly that's from Gujarat and all that. In reality, what is actually happening is that the Desha Devada's energy is penetrated that land, and that land is carrying that big energy. So all the, like most of the Bengali face and all that, quite often you'll see, I'll be usually surprised actually. So some of these Bengali faces you see very, very almost matching to that typical Durga face you see in the Bengal thing. So not at all mistake. So this is a very ordinary thing in the occult world, like ordinary thing happening if you understand the energies and so forth of the deity. You can extend this to many aspects, though, to be frank. This can be extended need not only be to India. You can extend that to even to other cultures also. Specific African tribes will match the main deities whom their tribes are linked with. American races will be directly linked with specific Greco-Roman gods and goddesses. You begin to see that particular aspect. South American races and all that will be linked with that particular god or goddess. You'll begin to see. But this is a real thing, by the way. Like if you can identify a Bengali face or from like a Kerala face or a Tamil face and all that, definitely the Devata face will also eventually show up as something you can see. And this is very pure. It becomes very pure. You can utilize this in many powerful ways actually. For an advanced upasaka, of course, they can quickly say it. I think Achiji, you were telling like how they would look at the arms and distinguish that also, right? If I'm not mistaken. Arms is very interesting because that also represents Mars actually to a point. Arms, this Karaka for arms is Mars. Mars also sadhana karna. So for an advanced upasaka, they'll be able to recognize that. I once happened to spend some time with a great martial art master. I once went to supermarket shopping with this man. No, I just went to a restaurant actually. Of course, I went to supermarket shopping with him back in USA actually. And this guy, he was fascinating. He would basically come out and he saw like one Asian guy come out of a supermarket. And he said, look at that guy. Look at his body shape actually. This guy's shape was like little curved in. So usually what happens in the Chinese internal martial arts is that your body begins to curve when the more martial arts you do. That's the nature of that Chinese colory kind of thing that's happening, the Chinese internal martial arts. So he said, this man has trained. You can identify that from his body itself. So that's exactly what is going on with the sadhana, what you just shared. So just by looking at the body, you know whether this person has trained in martial arts, whether this person has done some kind of upasana and all that from that perspective. And that can be done. It's a very easy thing to do once you get to that level as well. But it's a very relevant point. The good side of that is that you can actually identify what energies you can connect with much more easily. That's a very, very good side about it, to be frank. And I would encourage that. I would definitely encourage that kind of thing to try to identify. Most of the time, even this principle can be utilized in many ways. I mean, it's like an actual thing. Like you can actually do your face search of your face. Like there's one Google Arts and Culture app. do a face search of your face, identify other paintings across the world in like Google that app. If at all you find a famous person carrying your exact face in one of those old paintings in the World Culture Museum and all that, and you might potentially be directly successful in that same endeavor also. You never know. If your face looks like a big famous, artist or something, you explore art and you become famous. Great, that person has become artist, which means that Devata carrying that face energy has blessed that native with the artistic expression. You can utilize that. If someone has become a great author, you can directly access that Devata's energy, which has blessed that original native person carrying that particular face. And this face thing is a huge thing. And I would really encourage you to use it for the positive side more, actually. Use it. How can you utilize it more? Look at other Devatas directly closely resembling your face. Quite often, not only face, this also plays out in the Devatas strongly linked with the names, actually. That's a huge point. So, whichever gods or goddess is very close to your name, connect with that deity energy no matter what. It's a namesake deity, as it's called, right? So, that has its own blessings to be frank. So, something that has to be recognized that is equally deep. So, namesake deity has to give you a blessing, and because you're carrying that deity's name no matter what. So, you go to a temple, you go to the sampradaya, you connect with that energy of that thing, that has its own blessings. But definitely the identifying the sadhana based on your body parts is a very important principle which many advanced sampradayas use in many different ways. Advanced upasakas definitely can do more than that. So without doubt, that's a huge thing in my opinion. And the Google Earth thing is a very fast. I came across some seminar or something like that. In which they were encouraging that the logic is very solid. If you understand the Devata link with face, you can utilize that principle and make money very easily. Because if you are a famous scientist in a past life, then you connect with that, some link with that, you can recreate that. You never know. So this can be utilized in many powerful ways, by the way. If at all you come across certain statues and the statue is literally looking at your face, like literally in some cases, you'll be amazed. So if at all your face literally resembles one of those statues, if the statue is that of a god, any kind of upasana with that deity will immediately open the floodgates for you because you already are embodying that deity's energy in a physical form. So at the mantra thing you open up, immediately it will come directly in your physical thing actually. So it becomes a very important principle in my opinion if you utilize this. I cannot say that it's a huge concept. But there's a lot more things you can do with that. Eventually, this is a very normal skill. As a Jyotishi, when you interact with the people with specific placement, immediately, this person's face looks like this, his face looks like almost like a goat or a sheep. He must be having this placement in this chart. That kind of thing will come. Or this person is very lean, he must be having prominent Saturn. That kind of thing usually comes actually. In fact, one astrologer was even recommending when you meet with fat astrologers, like astrologers who are actually fat, chubby, obese, and all that, they're carrying heavy Jupiter energies. Then whatever they say, just follow whatever that fat astrologer says, you will be fine. Because that Jupiter energy, right? He has activated, he's carrying Jupiter himself. So whatever he says will embody that Jupiter blessing. So if you go with that, literally your Jupiter in your chart, you'll get big blessings and all that because of that. So huge concept. So the face is a huge point. Even the physical appearance is a big point. Very relevant in sadhana. Very relevant zone. It will naturally come about when you have an ishta. That is normally expected. Nothing surprising at all and so forth. And quite often, if you meet advanced upasakas and all that, they'll have similar faces, facial thing going on. We'll begin to observe that also. Very easily you can recognize that also to be fine. But it becomes the subtler thing also you'll see. So like Bhairava worshipped in North India will have a slight difference with Bhairavas in Bengal or South India and all that. But the same eyes they will carry is something you'll be able to observe. They'll carry that same energy and all that is something you'll observe. So like when quite often it's easy to recognize if you're talking to a Krishna devotee when they're sweet talking you and all that compared to like a Kali devotee who's very quickly like fighting with you and all that also, that kind of thing. So it's like one of those things you can interact with time. Very important point though, it becomes very relevant also to be frank. Yeah, those definitely advanced upasakas can do that and more. I cannot emphasize that. It's a huge point. And that's something you will eventually notice also. So eventually you will also notice, okay, this deity, this person with this particular facial feature is the one who talked this thing to me kind of thing you'll notice. And that will also you'll observe. In your professional that you'll begin to observe that. And so forth. Quite often in karma also, when you're resolving some karma, someone who looks very similar to your spouse's face or your sister's face or something you'll begin to observe. Then you can process that karma quickly. So that also happens. So that kind of thing happens. When you're in a people or in a profession or interacting with like, interacting with this thing more, you'll begin to see that kind of feature more. When you're interacting with a lot of people and all that, slowly you'll begin to see same face people are having the same set of problems also. You'll begin to observe that. So of course, the same thing can be taken with a personal level also. Same face people can also have the same set of spiritual energies being developed also at the same time.
Sorry, Santhip there seems to be, because of the rain, a lot of power fluctuation, and the power is going on and off. So now we'll come to the main topic with your permission. Last time, after the live ended, when we were still in the studio, you had shared that if you offer Pushpanjali, flowers to the deity, then you're offering Venus. So that'll bring a lot of prosperity. If you offer sari, it brings something. Oil, it brings something. So uh, Rahil and Archit will be asking more questions here. What are the impact of rituals that we do in a typical temple on karma and planets?
So definitely, most of the time, the Garas have their own ritualistic thing. Recommendations are always there. Different Garas are given different kind of rituals also. Sometimes food-based offerings are recommended for devis in general, so that takes care of moon very easily. Venus also can be a food-based offering where you're giving a payasam to a deity and you get that as prasad and all that, so that kind of thing. And different deities have their own preferences to the kind of payasam. The more sattvic deities would like the pal payasam, and rajasic deities might have a brown payasam, the sharkar payasam, kadum payasam as it's called. Specific other Mahavidyas and all that have their own variation. They have ginger edition, other cardamom edition, stuff like that going on also. All that is there. So the Nivedyam kind of offering depends also. So depending upon the graha you are trying to appease, you offer different kind of payasam, which is a food offering. But Devi usually is Archana Priya. So whatever you give in terms of offering is always good. So the Devi kind of thing. So usually food offering is usually preferred, standard thing. Then a flower offering is very highly recommended. Devi also likes flower offering. So Pushpanjali is a very standard offering, offering flowers to Devi. Very, very good thing to do regularly. Pushpanjali is a simple flower offering. Then if you can upgrade that flower offering to a garland, like a simple garland you're preparing and offering, or you pay someone to prepare and you offer that on your behalf and all that. That is also fine. That increase the flower thing there. Okay, now what is the difference between a flower? Now remember, karma is still valid with the gods, by the way. Whatever you offer, you'll get it back. But because now you're interacting with a 5-dimensional being, a higher dimensional being, the return is like 10 times more than what you offer. That's a big thing that happens. So if you're offering flower, which is Venus offering, you'll get the Venusian thing back. So you'll have a good social gathering going on. You might be resolving a particular situation much more easily. A very good diplomatic energy will happen between the problems which you're trying to overcome. That. So flower offering, food offering, you're offering something to consume, which is sweet also. So very important. You do not offer spicy things to gods because now you're offering something to burn. So if you offer spicy things to God, you will get that same spicy return back. So you'll get you offer very spicy thing to like Lakshmi or something. Lakshmi will definitely, okay, you offered me angry thing, I'll give you anger back 10 times more. So you'll have situations where people are getting angry and all that. So now some people made a mistake. At least one person made a mistake of, Ellunda, Ellunda gingerly thing. That Ellunda, you burn the black sesame seeds for Ganapati Homa. Ganapati is Homa Priya. So Ganapati likes Homa offerings a lot. That's what they usually do. Ganapati Homa and all that is done regularly. Ganapati Homa is good also to do once in a while. Once a year, Ganapati Homa, once a month, Ganapati Homa is standard practice by many upasakas actually. So like Chandi and Vinayaka Homa, that's what they standard do actually. So very standard thing. But you basically are removing your obstacles. That's why you're offering black seeds actually. So even before the obstacles can show up, you're removing the seeds itself. Like you're burning off the karmic obstacles before it can happen. That's the logic when you're offering black sesame seeds to Ganapati Home. So, but then if you're offering the black thing, sesame seed as food to Ganesha, then you're literally telling Ganesha, give me that obstacles back as in my food or in my money kind of, which is not something what you want. So that is a very important thing. So whatever you're offering, you'll get it back. That's a fundamental thing that happens in temple also. Now with Martian thing, so food offering for Devi, Ganapati is Homa Priya, Vishnu is Alangara Priya. So there is a difference when you decorate Vishnu with yellow cloth and white cloth. White cloth blessing of Vishnu is a very specific sattvic level alangara for Vishnu. So you are getting the sattvic kind of thing as return action. Whereas if you're decorating Vishnu with yellow color, which is Jupiterian level thing, you get more Jupiterian kind of thing, expansion of wealth and all that happening more directly. So a goddess is usually decorated in, now of course, Vishnu is Alangara Priya, Devi is Archana Priya, Ganapati is Homa Priya, Shiva is Abhisheka Priya. So whatever you offer as Abhisheka to Shiva, Shiva can be given all kinds of Abhisheka. From starting from Jal to, you start with Jalam, with the water, and you end with Jal. That's what you usually do in all the Abhisheka as well. And Homa Puja also very standard thing. Jalandi Jala as it's called. So with Abhishek you offer water first, then you can offer whatever you want for Shiva. So if you offer like for sun you can offer honey, for moon you can offer milk, for Venus you can offer curd, for Jupiter you can offer ghee, for Shani you can offer oil, and for Mercury you can offer leaves, bilwa leaves and all that. So you can offer those corresponding to Shiva, and you can get those corresponding planetary problems will be removed by Shiva much more easily. So Shiva is a destructive deity. He does Abhisheka, he literally wash away those problems for you. Actually, the very standard thing which many people will do is to do daily Jala Abhishek or Shivling every day. And so again, I quote Sri Guru's videos often because I learned a lot from him actually. So his videos, he shared this about how if you have a Shivling, you have to offer it daily. So daily, if you have a Shivling, you have to do it daily. Otherwise, the Shivling will absorb energies from your family. It's a big problem. So if you have a Shivling, daily Jal Abhishek is a requirement actually, which is very important. So that is one aspect. And then if you do the Shivling actually, so that's the other thing. So whatever you give as an energetic offering, you can always get it back. Now, a great thing you can always offer, especially in small temples, that when the festival of the deity is coming in, you can do whatever rituals that is possible. So most of the time, Annadanam donation can be done. And sometimes the Bhagavata Saptaham kind of thing can be donated. You can offer one day puja, whatever you can do, all that is great. Annadanam is a great offering to get rid of a lot of Shani, Rahu, Karma and all that. So because a lot of people will be coming, it's a Rahu kind of offering because it's a festival kind of offering and so forth. Offering done since festival as a big thing. I had someone, basically the only thing they did was that on Shivratri, on the morning day itself, when everyone was going to temple on Shivratri, they had a sugarcane juice kind of thing. They distributed 100 sugarcane juice outside for free. And then literally now, if you know sugarcane and juice, it's and you gave to 100 people immediately. Aquarius is the Rashi which you're activating. Immediately you are getting great big gains, financial gains and so forth. And it is simple as that. Outside on a main deities day, they gave an offering like 100 sugarcane juice. So you can do that. Lime juice, water you offer, sweets you can offer. Many people do that. Sweets and all that, they offer. Food offering happens. Bandara happens, right? Bandara culture is there in North India and all that. Which in South India is basically Annadanam kind of thing actually, which is what you have. So when you do that kind of thing, you see the corresponding blessings happening in a big way. So huge returns is coming. Now festival time is when most of the deities are extremely powerful. So that has its own advantages. So if you do it at a festival time or a Jayanti and all that, very good returns you'll get because of that. However, if you maintain, if for Ishta and all that, whatever is the main monthly date for the Ishta, if you maintain that on a monthly basis, the festival time when you're doing it, now it's amplified much more time. Because every month you are connecting with that energy in a big way as well. So this is also something I've seen going. And if you're having a Nitya kind of a thing, it's super amplified. Especially if you're a Nitya thing, you have it on a monthly basis and then you have it on an annual Jayanti basis. Otherwise, it's super. It will be very evident. You will have no doubt. Big events are happening. You're getting big money, big customers, big packages, big blessings and so forth. Big loans opening up, children are happening. All will be very direct. So the blessings and all that will be happening very directly. So of course, if you have a Nitya thing going on and a monthly thing being maintained and an annual thing being maintained, extremely powerful. So that is the bigger thing to be for. So ideally, I would encourage 3 levels for your Ishta Devata kind of thing, no matter what. What will be the Ishta Devata temple and all that, if you can do that and so forth. Other temples, usually I would definitely encourage once a year kind of thing, and main specific temple, specific day kind of thing also. Now, the level of offerings can also be very different. So quite often, people want to improve the education of their children, donating books of Dharma to children, organizing camps, donating, honoring speakers inside a temple premises, improving that karma much more amplified. I cannot say this enough. It becomes a very direct thing going on and so forth. But more importantly, if you are helping to maintain a temple close by, the result of that is bigger thing no matter what. Quite often when you have and believe me, when you open that route, if you have a link with a deity and devata and all that, you'll see things happening much more easily. So you always should never ignore your Kudumba Devata or family deity kind of thing without a doubt. To the point where I tell people, if it's a family deity temple, it's like you're celebrating your son's birthday or something, or your parents' birthday or something. You have to come back home and celebrate it. So main festival for your family deity becomes much more important no matter what. Because it's your own family deity, your own Kuldevi kind of thing happens, it's so important. Of course, the main deity for Ishta Devata has its own importance because it's a Upasana Devata as well. That is also one more thing you have to watch out. The visiting it at the town, making sure you're doing some big Upasana on that deity becomes very important. Now, minimum thing, at least as I mentioned, you never go to a temple empty-handed. You always have to go with something in your hand. So you have to go with some kind of agarbatti, some ghee. Ghee is for Jupiter, agarbatti is for burning away your problems. Camphor is for improving that devotion aspect and all that. Flower is to maintain some good social thing. Leaf is also like for healing and all that. All that helps out and so forth. Now there are different kind of offerings you can do to improve things. So Ganesha famously is also obstacle remover. So no matter what, if you have big obstacle to remove, if you donate 108 coconuts to a deity and all that, that deity cannot ignore your thing, is what I used to say. Now the problem is that small temple, they can't handle 100 coconuts at this one go. So most of the time you have to go like 9 coconuts in one day, go to over 12 days or 12 weeks kind of thing, or something like that. So 108 coconuts is a big thing. So that deity has to remove your obstacle if you give that kind of thing, no matter what. Standard donation of coconut or smashing coconuts for Ganesha also highly recommended to remove your obstacles. That's also something I would encourage. That's a very good thing. Usually, Bhairava and all that, you have to give alcohol. If you have very problems coming from strangers and you have no control, you feel like this guy is not giving you a relief or this big problem is happening, definitely donate alcohol and all that to Bhairava. All that is a very standard offering I would encourage. And sometimes a specific kind of Bhairava is like specific kind of alcohol, which is something, there is an alcohol you can get from jaggery actually. Like jaggery, North India and all that, you can get an alcohol from jaggery, which is so that's a sun quality to the alcohol, if that makes sense. Usually the normal alcohol you get is from barley actually. So that's a barley, that's a Rahu level quality to that alcohol, which is what you see. So different kind of alcohol. You can get an alcohol from honey, which is honey mead. That's a big deal, by the way. In Europe and all that, some of the deities, they use honey mead a lot. But it's a very pure thing. So honey is like sun actually, alcohol derived from honey, which has its own thing. You will observe that. So different kind of alcohol has its own different effects also, to be frank. That's also one more thing you can try. Different kind of silk also has its own effect. Different deities have different specific kind of clothes. So many times I've seen, now the thing I've seen is that smaller temples, the response is very quick because the deities are smaller, much more accessible and very powerful also. But big temple, the response is big, but it will come in small chunks and pieces actually. Both has its own advantages. So visiting both the temples are what I would encourage. So especially your Kuladevata and Kumbadevata and all that. Along with that, visit also the high temples both is something I would encourage. Usually when you would go with ghee and all that, you can get definitely Jupiter and blessings. And then quite often in North India and all that is a big thing. You can offer different kind of dals like, the usual moong dal, red dal, yellow dal, all that kind of donation can be made. Wheat, atta, rice donation can also be made. Standard thing in Kerala also, you can donate banana and all that. In fact, when you're carrying banana, like Guruvayur and all that, you don't need to stay in line. They'll literally allow you to go inside. If you go with the big banana thing and all that, you can easily go with banana and all. That's a very good Jupiter and blessing to be planned. One of the standard things I recommend people to do is annually to give their weight equivalent of banana or whatever you can. Now, there's a rich man in Kerala. He literally once in 2 years, he'll give his weight equivalent of gold to Guruvayurappan, which means his prayers are getting answered. So he's able to afford that. Now his real estate empire is flourishing. No issue like that. So sometimes these kind of things also work. Gold donation to a deity is one of the supreme donation, to be frank. Gold, jewelry and all that is a big thing. Silver, of course, is like that energy is there. It's like moon energy. That deity can come and go just like the moon if you donate silver. The moment you give gold, that deity will show up for your need. Whatever prayer is having, well, that's a good thing. So quite often there's a very standard thing to donate gold jewelry to a deity. Without doubt, that deity's sanidhyam can be predicted if you actually have donated big gold and all that. In fact, I happened to recently witness a close by Durga temple where the native promised that if he gets a job in Gulf, he'll give big gold. So he came back, he put 5 pound gold, or 5 carat gold or something. It's like 3 lakhs already, he just gave it. a small temple. Now that shows that deity is very powerful. That's what I usually mean. That deity is capable of answering that prayer and all that. That's what you need. But if you donate gold to a deity, then now the equation is high level. That is something you can see. Now, if you contribute towards the deity's home, it's like your own home, that person has contributed, that link is already established. So the deity will never forget you if you have contributed towards the construction of that temple. Because of that. So that's why I'm always saying contribute towards the construction of the temple, renovating of the temple, no matter what. Even though it's like, again, I understand the state of government and whatnot. Even if you can take any steps in improving temples, it is one of the best things ever. And every time it is a permanent thing, as long as that brick you have contributed is there, as long as that item you have contributed is being used. So Mars, the donation is usually vessels for cooking, and machines and all that is usually donated for Mars actually. And the famous remedy for Mars, which is to fulfill your desires, is basically like Valakka or the lamp or diya, which they say. Now a big thing with diya they usually say is that in your own home also they are usually recommend to light 2-wick diya rather than the 1-wick diya. 2-wick diya is both Shiva and Shakti thing. So whenever the deity you give 2-wick diya, the energy will flow towards you also. If it's a 1-wick diya, then it's that Sanidhyam of the deity. That's not flowing perfect. It's there actually. Then you can do the offering and all that. So 2-wick diya is a simple hack kind of thing to activate the energy further. Something you can do. No, in temples and all that, you will see most of the time it will be 5-wick diya, which is very auspicious also, which is great. So that's also something I would encourage. So the whatever you can give to a temple, always do that. And whatever the priest does, again, if the priest says something, it is the deity literally telling you. You have to approach it like that. In a temple, if you can do a permanent thing, it's a huge thing. Sometimes these are the only ways you can remove some karmas and all that, to be frank. If in, say, a lot of, in India, Punjab area, Pakistan partition happened, a lot of families have to suffer because they have abandoned their old temples and all that. Now that you ignore a deity, 2 generation, 3 generation, that karma will happen. So that has happened. So quite often, one of the only ways they are able to come out of the karma is that when they contribute towards construction of a new temple, or like they are re-establishing a link with a new deity actually, which can sort of begin to develop for them where they are in the new location, all that. That kind of thing is a big thing. So anything you can do with the temple is always you'll get it back. That is what I would say, and it will always come back to exactly to the energetic linkage you have put in as well. And believe me, it will come back in a huge way. It is 10 times more. It is guaranteed to come 10 times more also. Without a doubt, that will also happen. And this is why you see a lot of people are in competition, like rich people and all that. Once they get that thing, I got my 10 lakh job offer, 10 lakh profit, they'll never give up on that. They'll always be, what's the next best thing I can do? What's the next best thing I'll do? And all they will see. But the real secret really comes in actually establishing your family deity temple, your Kuladeva temple and all that in a big way. And this was a very normal thing in my way. And now quite often when the power becomes stronger and all that, whatever be the nature of the deity you give blessing, you give offerings for, you'll exactly get that deity level energetic returns back. Exactly that. So 9, all the devatas at that particular planetary level get returns back. Kali's blessing is very famous with land related blessings and all that. Land legal issues and all that. If you're having big thing, you offer a lot of things to Goddess Kali, you will get land related blessings a lot, and stuff like that. There are many other blessings also. Different lands have different deshas have their own unique remedies for different deities. So, like in usually Radha Krishna place and all that, they'll always the Radha Chunri and all that becomes high important thing. Or in Kamakya, the water and all that becomes more important, right? So things like that is there in different desha. They have their own unique thing going on from the person. So I would always say whatever you can do, always go with that. But sometimes I've seen is very good if you can prepare something from your own home and then take it to the deity and then come back to your home directly after that. That has its own important thing going on if you can, because that energy is established from your home to that temple. When you come back to your home after that, now it's fine if you are in a different city and all that's fine. But at least when you come back to your city, go to your home directly, right? That kind of thing is something I would encourage. So you'll see a very pure linkage establishing with that. And whatever you can do, I would encourage that. Whatever ritual you can offer is always great. If you do bali, you'll definitely see the heads of your enemies being chopped off. The enemies will be removed without doubt. When the Tantras highly say, like, the bali offering is very recommended. So definitely that Upasana Devata you'll see a Martian blessing being removed purely from that perspective also. Whoever has spoken against you will be completely removed in a very pure public way if you do a donation, if you do the bali of buffalo and all that. Because buffalo and the nakshatra is Swati nakshatra directly falling in Libra Rashi and all that you can see going on. If you have a lot of persistent enemy, this person not leaving you no matter what, the bali is a standard thing. But quite often I've seen bali is more safer to do in temples and all that, to be frank. If a Tarapita and all, if you're having that regularly, you're doing that, you'll see amazed. Quite often in some of these deities, Peter and all that, you believe the thing is amplified like anything. Kali Ghat and all that, you can do a lot of billion all that. So that kind of thing has its own good thing going on, to be frank. So I've seen each remedy, whatever you give, it's a karmic exchange happening between the deity. Even a simple flower will have its own effect. Even a biggest offering you can do will have its own effect. And this was the secret of kings. Temples were always the secret of kings in India. I have no doubt about that. A royal family became a royal family because they took over the deity in a big way. And depending upon the nature of the deity they worshipped, that's why they would flourish. So I think it was fascinating actually. I think in one of Sri Guru's post, he mentioned about Nataraja being, I think Chola Empire or one of these Tamil Empire thing. They are royalty thing. Nataraja is Venus aspect of Shiva. Venus energy is the trade energy. And they literally expanded in the Venus direction with the southeast direction. And they established a huge trade empire in Indonesia and all that. So it was a direct thing. So literally the deity you worship will bless you at that level. In fact, huge industrial people, the biggest secret for them is they are taking care of big temples and all that. And so forth. I believe even Abhanis have their own deity kind of thing. Some deity they worship for 12 years. After that, they became a huge success. That's what they actually said. But if you maintain a deity in a temple fashion, now that energy is consecrated, you are maintaining a linkage and all that, that energy will build up in 12 years. And that eventually gives you huge returns actually. And this is the secret. No rich person is going to tell you that. They'll never tell you what they made this particular they made money through temple, but this is the way, without a doubt. And more importantly, when you actually see the progression happening, every year maintaining the same ritual, you are giving that biggest ritual in that temple you're doing every year kind of thing, you will see it literally grows for you no matter what. No matter what, that's the thing. But the moment when you actually have a temple directly linked with your family or you are directly linked with the temple expansion and all that, the moment you're linked with that, the returns will be huge. And that has been a secret of many business empires, a lot of business families, huge, lot of successful people out there. Without doubt, it's a temple thing which has always given them big success. And the more linkage you have with the deity, with the sadhana, with the rituals, with the donation, all that, and so forth, is the thing. Like I said, for many standard upasakas, it used to be a normal thing to donate all your wealth to the temple. But the thing is that if you donate that money, you'll get it 10 times back also, which is something that others don't understand. But which is also there. There was an actual thing that would happen. Energetically, they would donate to the deity and they will actually accept it back. And this would happen every month by itself. That's something that would happen eventually. So that will be a very standard way to actually develop the wealth also significantly. And the moment you consider a temple as a god or goddess in any temple as a business partner in your life, you will see your life progressing much more easily when that financial thing is basically linked with your with that temple also. And key thing is now, no matter what, wherever you are in the USA, UK, you still have to come to a temple during his annual festival. Simple as that. So then you can establish a linkage no matter what you are. This is what the ancients did. This is why many families flourished. Like this is why in Malaysia and all that, still you find a lot of Indians and all that because they have their own temples and all that, which they established and maintained for a long time. So you find this kind of thing going on a lot. And like I said, the families who have been instrumental in establishing temples in foreign lands, they get huge blessings because of that also. And I cannot say that enough. And the whatever energy, so you say you established a Saraswati temple, big blessings of knowledge will be there in the family, a lot of intellectual PhDs in the family and all that. You establish like a Lakshmi temple, a lot of flourishing businesses kind of thing. Establish like a Kali temple, a lot of land related thing, real estate kind of thing you can claim, stuff like that. So rituals definitely is a starting point, but eventually I would highly encourage you to think those temples. And the bigger and even the smallest temple will give huge returns, which is especially when done correctly and all that. And of course, then quite often when you organize, like you have a bhajan night going on in some temples and all that, if that temple directly linked to you, Venus energy is increasing the temple. Slowly you're seeing your business thing also increasing significantly. So I cannot say this enough. So this is a huge point. I must say, whoever I've seen as significantly wealthy, this is a big, big thing which they maintain. And this is the biggest secret that they'll never ever say. But that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of temples in India, to be frank. Like, why are there so many temples, right? That's an actual reason why. Because they see the direct benefit of that in many cases. But the moment when you link that with the old Kshetrams, you do a sadhana, you maintain the donations, you do rituals and all that, bigger returns come also in your life. And this is like a pure mathematical thing. Like, whatever you do, you'll exactly get it back at that level. That's also something I've seen. So 10% is what normally you're expected to give donation no matter what in a dharmic perspective. Like Sanatana Dharma and all that usually has a law. to a guru, to a thing and all that, you have to usually give 10%. But if you increase that to 20%, you'll be amazed. If you do it to 50%, you'll be amazed. There are people who do it to 75% and all that. There are people who will do that. But you have to start somewhere is what I would really encourage. And this is huge. Like I said, some of the wealth which I've seen is pretty amazing. And because they have maintained some temples, similar, they're sponsoring some pandit. They take care of the pandit for entire year ahead. They support the family and all that. They have lot of people support the family. This kind of arrangement is done. It's huge. Whoever is building a temple, of course, it's a big enterprise, not an easy thing. If it's a collective thing, even better. It's a huge thing also from that perspective. And usually when you contribute towards that, and especially so this is why old temple and all that, whatever you can do is very good. Thousands of year temple and all that, whatever you can do, it's a huge thing actually because of that. But along with that, I would also encourage to support construction new temples also, according to the reason I said. Say you eventually attain upasana thing, you develop that strength of the sadhana, 10 years of one sadhana, the deities energy has become one with you, no doubt over that. And you want to maintain that energy in your home temple, definitely do thing. However, in the usual thing, what has happened is that because that training has not been passed on to the next generation about the importance of these kind of deities and gods and goddesses, many of the descendants fail to take care of the energies which their ancestors established, which eventually leads to problems and so forth. So you have to make sure that training is passed on, the culture is passed on, the knowledge more importantly is passed on, and the impact is directly made visible in their life. You have to show this, we did this puja, this ritual came, this result we came. All that kind of thing needs to be put in that mind also directly. And then there is no doubt about these kind of things. That's a big thing I would say. And believe me, it's in many times these kind of tests will come. But again, I'm telling the reality of it. I'm not asking you to be blind about it as well. But definitely try to put what I shared right now into action. You'll be surprised. You will be surprised. Try whatever you can initially, whatever it be, right? Nowadays, there's thankfully, a lot of temples, at least there's some revival at some temples happening because of all this trust and all that. A lot of Instagram, WhatsApp people and all that, right? So they are still sending all these messages and all that. That kind of thing is going on. Try whatever you can. And if you develop that, you'll be even big thing from that perspective. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Santhip ji. This last section's everything's been amazing, but I think this last section on the rituals has been a complete treasure trove. We'll have to revisit this over and over again. But I do have one question for you, which is particularly when it comes to alcohol as an offering. Do you think anyone can do it, or one should have progressed a fair bit in their own journey, upasana journey, to be able to do that?
So alcohol offering usually is done to tamasic deities who accept alcohol. So in Kerala, for instance, it's a very standard thing to offer alcohol to the guardian deities like Chatan, Guligan and all that. It's a very standard thing in Kerala. In North India, of course, it's a very standard offering to Bhairav. So anyone can do that. I don't see that as a problem. If you're doing it in a temple, completely fine. However, if you're doing it in your home, definitely I would encourage some Guru Sampradaya kind of thing to go on. Because quite often what happens is that if you're offering alcohol, now usually the standard principle has been you offer alcohol outside your home and then you do the normal sattvic offerings or rajasic offering inside. That has been a rule usually. But offering alcohol outside is very highly encouraged. But otherwise, whatever Sampradaya, whatever the Guru Sampradaya is advising doing that is what I would encourage. But alcohol offering is standard in temples actually. So you can do that kind of in temples. Temple kind of thing you can always do, not a problem. Alcohol offering in the home is usually, that's when what you said becomes very relevant biology. Like if you're doing alcohol offering, now there are people who do that, having said so, but they are also inviting those energies at the same time. So if you are able to handle it, it's fine. But most of the time, not many people are prepared for it. That's what I've seen. That's the reality of it. That's what I've seen. But then if you study from a guru, the proper way to do it and all that, then great. Even a lot of Tamilians and all that, when they go abroad also, there's a brick puja usually done for Munishwaran or Karpara and all that. So in the brick puja, they usually offer alcohol outside the home. That's still something they maintain. So still they can do it. There's no issue like that. I've seen that being maintained no matter what and so forth. So that's usually done outside home, done according to Sampradaya, done according to Guru Parampara's kind of instruction, or done according to the family's traditional instruction kind of thing is what usually happens on that front. Of course, the Sampradayas are there, alcohol offering, different Kaulachara and all that, right? So have the alcohol offering, meat offering and all that very standard in Kaula Marga thing. Most of the time, there is a lot of mantras associated with that actually. So it's not usually a simple bhakti thing to be frank. So like a bhakti thing you can do at temple, not a problem. Most of the time there's a mantra thing that goes on with that. So if you know the mantra, you learn it from a guru, then you can do it easily. But otherwise, bhakti thing in your home, mixture kind of thing happen. I've seen certain sampradaya though, depending upon the sampradaya actually. Western sampradayas, Western occultists and all that, they do a lot of alcohol. Like the West Indies and all that, they have this Orisha tradition. Orisha, I literally call it Orisha. Like it's a actual name of like all the island devatas and all that. African devatas, they have an Orisha tradition. They do a lot of alcohol offering, ancestral offering, and all that. But again, it's not a well-established thing. They don't have a temple thing, so that energy has not been institutionalized yet, which is what it means. So there is not a temple that has been destroyed and all that. So maybe you are dealing with the remnants of a different tradition being maintained by living gurus kind of thing going on, that thing. So that's a different thing. That's what I've seen about alcohol offerings in general. But in general, I would not. I would definitely do it in temples. So what I said here was a temple thing. A lot of Bhairava temple and all that, you can do it. In Kerala and all that, once a year, if they have Chatan and all that, some of these Ugra deities will have alcohol drinking Chatan and blood drinking deities and all that. In Kerala, you have this Gurudi thing going on. So you have that, which the blood of the rooster is cut off and offering is given. Sometimes alcohol is given to the guardian deity outside a fierce deity kind of thing. So that's a very normal thing going on. So that's where alcohol is usually given. But yeah, usually it's very interesting actually. So sometimes if your blood is, your ancestors are sattvic, and you are actually, if you reach out to alcohol thing, sometimes I've seen that does not click because your ancestors don't support that. That kind of thing can happen. But sometimes I've seen at the same time, if your ancestors are alcoholic drinking people and you're offering sattvic deity, that also might not work out for you the other way also. That's also other thing I've seen in some cases. Most of the time, you have to handle what you have initially, and then build up from what you build up from there is what is the usual advice. That also given. But alcohol, but no matter what are the problem you have, definitely doing alcoholic offering. Rahu kind of offering is huge for alcohol for sure. You have a big problem and all that, definitely alcoholic offering is recommended. So usually when someone is saying, I'm bothered by it, I don't know how I can solve this problem, big enemies offering, this a different community person is attacking me or different issue problems happening, definitely alcoholic offering is recommended. Because what happens in an alcoholic offering is that energy, Rahu energy, that deity is carrying a Rahu energy capable of removing Rahu energy for you. When you give that alcohol to the deity, that deity will attract all Rahu kind of problems towards the deity, and that will be removed like that. And many times you have these kind of things going on. Nagas and all that have their own Rahu thing. The Nagas are given not alcohol actually. There are deities given tender coconut water to be frank. So that's a kind of a Rahu kind of thing going on. Not exactly alcohol, but someone closer to Rahu like deity. But usually these deity will have a sub deity who's usually drinking alcohol, which is what usually happens. So that's the other interesting thing you begin to observe. So tender coconut water is somewhat closer to it, but different regions have their own kind of alcohol kind of thing going on also, which is which has its own importance without a doubt. Each of those regions will have their own energies which they'll have to develop without a doubt. But yeah, usually when I think everyone understands the importance of Bhairava now. 2-3 years since that importance has happened for sure. Everyone knows why alcoholic offerings and meat offerings should be given for sure, because those are the guardian deities without doubt. When those guardian deities' energy came down, literally we opened our borders to many other things actually, which is the other thing they don't realize actually. So in fact, alcohol drinking deities will prevent you from alcohol drinking people in your life to create problems, to be frank, which is something that you don't really realize. But that's the reality. That deity will keep that particular energy off from your life, which is what happens.
Thank you, Santhip ji,
Thank you very much.
for a long session and very intense session. Archit, do you have any questions? Otherwise, we'll invite Santhip ji for his closing remarks.
None. Thank you, Sandeep.
Great.
We will take quite some time to digest this, whatever you have shared with us in this video as well. Archit was mentioning he's already watched the previous video 2-3 times.
Yeah, I was also surprised by it.
More than that.
Yeah, I myself had to watch the video again to see what I had said and all that, but it was fascinating. But again, I shared some things today, like I said, the concept of temple is a very important concept. Astrologically, you know that when the temple has been established, that energy of the deity has reached at a Jupiterian level. That's why when you have a Jupiterian puja padati kind of thing where a priest is taking care of that temple and all that, so that that Kshetra will create a field which will support that energy and extend it to everyone linked to that in many amazing ways. Not only at the knowledge level, where the knowledge of the deity opens a very specific energetic knowledge and all that happening, even at the business level as well, specific kind of business flourishing, specific kind of trades opening up, and specific kind of other fundamental enemies being kept at bay kind of thing as well. So temples are very, very important. But like I said, at least even though there is a government control thing, all the temple drama is happening without doubt. That issue is very clear, and more people are becoming aware, which also will eventually become a big thing going on. And slowly that will change. But then you can do many more things even beyond that. So there are temples which still do not have access to government, which is still equally powerful. Actually, equally when you start with that and so forth is there. But when you actually work on the temple with no matter what in the many ways, you can still support. Now, what happens many of these days is that people will know the Panditji in some big temple. The people have some pujas going on through that Panditji no matter what. So that at least the Panditji people are, that ecosystem is still being preserved by many other people even to this day in many other ways. So that's the thing, the reality will happen. Many times these deities will function through like that. So Kali Yuga, the deities will also have Kali Yuga ways to actually handle that problems also, to be frank. So that is also one thing that's keeping the ecosystem maintaining, to be frank. So eventually what I've seen is that at least a good thing about Kerala has been, like there's a healthy ecosystem of tantrics, temples, and the astrologers, to be frank. There's a good thing going on where the astrologers will recommend the tantrics to do puja and the people to go to temples, and the temples will invite tantric and other things regularly. And the astrology would also be used to maintain the energies of the temple once in two year way kind of thing. And believe me, this is still can be practiced. I know a lot of astrologers have been even to like North India and various cities to establish a temple, the Prashnamarga, Ashtamangala Prashna being maintained to look at the energies of the temple. Still that being practiced. Though it's a very dominantly Kerala practice, there was a time without doubt and without doubt will happen in the future in other temples also, to be frank. That's something you'll be able to see going on. And as I mentioned, the moment when you directly link with the Ishta Devata, you have an Ishta. If you have an Ishta, then definitely visit the temple. Like a Bhairava temple and all that, definitely you should be visiting. Whatever the deity you have, visit the main pilgrimages of that deity. And quite often, as I mentioned, there is a Desha Devata equation thing going on also. So if you find the closest spiritual place wherever you're staying, visit that temple regularly. That will also help out a lot. Whatever you can do, as I mentioned, to a temple, whatever be the puja offering, whatever you can do, it's great. And believe me, like it will be an exact energetic thing. It's a simple fundamental law of karma operating even a temple also. Whatever you give, you will get it back. Have that attitude in mind. And if you're giving pure thing to the energy of the deity, pure emotion to the deity, you will get it back even deeply. And that is a big thing. And definitely without doubt, people underestimate the importance of temples for their own sadhanas. So like I said, we should be aware of the temples close to our home. We should always be visiting that and have that thing going on no matter what. Close to whatever place at your work, also they're close to home where you're staying. The moment you frequent that particular thing, you'll begin to see things improving in a big way. And quite often, like I said, the moment when you visit the certain temples in that land, you can leave that land very quickly also, to be frank. All that kind of thing also is something I've seen happening. And when you actually take it forward, as I mentioned, eventually when you are in a position where you're not only supporting your temple, believe me, temples have always been the secret of not only rich families. That's been a big reason why Hinduism survived to a point. Energetically, we know that energy has established to a Jupiterian level. The deity Sanithya with the sun moon has come in. That will flourish that Vidya of the Devata. So eventually it will be a point where that person of the deity, that the deity becomes the sadhak becomes so advanced in his or her own sadhana to the point where they are capable of doing pranapratishtha of various deities themselves. That is what eventually happens. So the more temples in a land, the more the land will flourish. That's how it has always been actually. And that's a big reason why Kashi and all that still attracting a lot of people to this day. Like every street corner, there's a temple there and all that without doubt. So that's a huge thing. The moment when you recognize that particular aspect, and that energetic maintaining that five-dimensional energy in that land is maintained, huge blessings come. And that's why, of course, when the actual sadhana is being maintained, so eventually that has to be the goal also. And usually this is a very great thing for temples become a great place for established Shubhasakas and Grahasthas kind of thing also. Both of them have their own role to play in temples. And that becomes a big thing. So I think I forgot to mention, when you interact with the trust person of the temple, it's like a sun-moon interaction that happens. So like a trustee of the temple president or whatnot, it's a sun-moon level interaction that usually happens, something to keep in mind. So the other, and whatever offerings as is possible when you give, and believe me, everything will come back to you no matter what. And depending upon the Shakti of the deity, you can predict the kind of blessings you have received also from that perspective. you can eventually recognize that. So most of the time when established sampradayas, the krama, whatever the krama temples, krama devatas temples you can find, whenever you're doing upasana. So usually when you're doing upasana with a deity, whatever be the krama level, make it a point to visit that krama deity's temple whenever you can. That is the other hidden thing, by the way. So most of the people will not do that also. But if you do that, it's a big thing. You'll see a big boost in your sadhana coming from that also. That's something I can highly encourage, kind of thing. And most of the time, it is if you're a Vaishnavite, do the Divyadesham, Manzure Divyadesham temple thing. If you're a Shakta, do the 54 Shakti Peed and all that. Whatever 72 or 78 Shakti Peed or 54 Shakti Peed and all that, you can always do. If you're a Shiva Upasaka, do the 12 Jyotirlinga and all that. Panchabhuta Lingam and all that, everyone should be doing no matter what. 12 Jyotirlinga also everyone should be doing. All the temple circuits that are very famous in your own locality, all that you can always do. So whether it's Panchketar in north or the Ashtaganpati in west and all that, or even the Char Dham and all that, very good thing to maintain. Big Kshetrams and all that has its own importance, by the way. And most of the time, you'll see that deity of that location is boosting your own Ishta Devatas kind of energy for your own sadhana. That's a very unique thing you begin to see. A very fascinating thing when you begin to observe that also. To be frank, you'll see it's a very unique thing. The deity will not exactly boost that exact aspect of the mantra directly linked to you, which that deity can give you a boost. All that kind of thing you can see when you interact with that. And most of the time, like I said, it's never an accident if you're born close to a temple and all that. You can definitely claim a link with that deity from that perspective. Your house is close to a temple, that also you should never ignore, maintain a link with that deity no matter what. And then more importantly, your current location also always identify that temple and so forth. Make it a point to visit that and so forth. And usually, eventually the goal will always be to have a link with that temple. I think two things I would just say was that I came across one case where this past week itself, like someone, I recommended them to like Kuldevra issues going on, and then I recommended them should definitely establish a temple back again. So this guy was like went to a place, some Baba Samadhi was there in Rajasthan village. I forget the name of the village and all that. So he basically put in money for that village. He said, okay, they were finally at the situation where last day to pay the labor, this guy shows up out of nowhere. They were like, said the temple thing is repaired. So he started to repair that. He said, I'll give 5 lakh kind of thing immediately. He gave 5 lakhs. Then immediately he said that out of nowhere I was getting money for my business to literally give them money. Whenever they would ask me, I would literally get money out of nowhere. And he gave literally 40 lakhs to build that temple and all that out of nowhere actually. And that's what he said. And then he said that he was feeling energized by that thing. Now, this is the other thing. If such a thing happens, you know that there is that deity is wanting that energy to come. The deity wants the money to come through you and all that, what it usually means. That's a big thing you have to recognize. So that happened. He built the temple thing. It was a big thing for the village people. A lot of good things happen. Now it's a Radha Krishna temple built in some Rajasthani village. And now it's a big thing. So they'll have bhajan night every Friday or whatnot. Krishnashtami will be a big thing. Now I encourage him to do like a monthly thing for the deities there, which will be a good thing and all that. So it's a good thing. Slowly they have an opportunity there. Then the biggest thing I mailed him, understand, make sure you are establishing a link with your family to that temple also. You're contributing so much money to a temple, make sure you're visiting that temple frequently to get the blessing directly. One more interesting thing I'll share is that I recommended someone to just go to Harsiddhi Mata temple out of nowhere. So I think something like that. They went to the Harsiddhi Mata temple because some moment thing happened. It was very weird actually. But I said that they met some celebrity's wife there. The celebrity's wife had some connection there. The wife was like, yeah, okay, come to Hyderabad, I'll take you to Balaji temple, and all that happened after that. So good thing, you never know. So sometimes I've seen like never ever consider any temple devatas come. Again, I'm repeating it, never by accident. Keep that in mind. Interact with that devata as much as possible, and more things will come your way after that. And the moment you will link with that deity, you will see all these why Bharat has been a Mahashetram and all that for big reasons. You'll actually see that why. You will be very direct and all that, and going on why. Quite often when they say India's luck, India's blessed now is 100%. It is only because of the temple and so forth and all that. The great thing is that once you understand that, and once you allow the temple thing to flourish again, then that's when India will grow without it. Like I said, start with the local temples. Start with your own family deity temple. Start with a temple you have access to. Now, this is a very direct way to give super boost for the sadhana kind of thing. And believe me, your own sadhana will get a pure stepping stone when you contribute towards those temples actually. And eventually, it should be a point where you're establishing a Pranpratishtha Murti or something in your own home. Eventually, you should have your own family temple without doubt. So each of everyone who is a sadhaka, eventually that will happen. The more Bhaira temples are created, more the descendants are taking care of, more blessings will come also, without doubt. All that will come eventually, without doubt. Or at least make sure you're linking yourself to some established by the temple, no matter what, with your family. That will give bigger blessings, kind of thing also. And that's a huge, huge thing, by the way. Whenever that level is reached, huge blessings will come, without doubt, actually. So that's the final closing remark I have to say. It's a long thing, but like I said, it's a pure thing. Most of the time, I share this kind of topics at a long time to people who are real astrology enthusiasts and all that. But as I said, once you understand the level, how it's all linked, right? So your sadhana is directly linked with the temple, and more importantly, Jyotisha becomes a very powerful tool also when you're looking into that. So that the temples has always been the biggest secret, open secret out there. And the moment you utilize that, it's a huge thing, actually. And you can utilize that in any way to your capacity. That's the biggest takeaway in my opinion.
Thank you, Santhip ji. Your last, you said it's a long session, but for us, time really flew, and especially the impact of rituals, the impact of temples, and maintaining the connection. For me, treating the Devata as a business partner was very insightful. And the couple of anecdotes where you mentioned that he weighs himself in gold every 12 years and offers that gold to Guru Arappan.
Yeah.
And so, if someone would like to learn astrology, especially Ashtamangala Prashna or Nakshatra based predictions, what would you recommend? Where can they go?
Ashtamangala Prashna is a Kerala thing, actually. Ashtamangala Prashna, unfortunately, I have not learned it myself, but maybe at some point in time I will eventually. But then there are Kerala astrologers, actually. This one astrology teacher by the name Srinath Oji. He runs a Kerala astrology Facebook group. He usually offers it in Malayalam, actually, but if there are enough people, I'm sure he might offer it in English also. If you can contact him, you can find it on Facebook group. Kerala Astrology Facebook group is there. Nakshatra-based prediction is something I teach. So I have studied with Dr. Pai and all that. Dr. Arjun Pai is great for learning nakshatras. If anyone wants to study nakshatra and all that, definitely reach out to me. That's completely fine. So that's something I can easily teach also. But yeah, Ashtamangala Prashna is fascinating for sure. I've been exposed to it 2 or 3 times. But because I had a nakshatra background, I was able to get more out of it, let me put it that way. So and was able to understand it in a deeper level also. So that was good. But yeah, definitely reach out to me if any for the nakshatra based thing and all that.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. Dear viewers, will share Sandeep ji's email ID in the description. If you would like to reach out to him for learning or consultations, please do feel free to reach out to Sandeep ji.
Yeah. Anything else? Any closing remarks, Archit ji or Rahul ji? Anything else? Anything on your mind?
Absolutely, great session once again, and again the type of information which flows from you through you certainly has some divine intervention related which we can feel, and the type of the way you join the dots, that is something very special. So again, thankful for that. And one more thing, the number of times you have mentioned Kali Ghat Kali, I think we should certainly visit her. And secondly, Anirudh, you should certainly call Sri Guru on the next podcast. The amount of time he has also been mentioned is quite due. So thank you very much, Sandeep ji. Thank you very much for your time. And again, it was a very insightful session.
Absolutely. Completely agree with Archit. Santhip, this has been really a revelation. I mean, I've heard so many amazing things from both Anirudh and Archit about you, but I think today's session has thrown up so many insights. It's been really inspiring, and I think it's going to be really helpful in my own sadhana journey. So can't thank you enough.
Okay, great. Happy to have been sharing what I know. Very happy to have been here. Great.
Sandeep ji, meaning Archit, we can request Sri Guru, but ultimately we'll see what Sri Guru says. Because of your question, Archit, I put it on the WhatsApp group, a screenshot of my house and the temples. Sandeep ji, the number of temples around in just a 1 kilometer radius, it is surprising. And I searched on the go and I saw that the Desha Devata is Bhoganandishwara. In my case, is a very old Shiva temple. Sri Guru has also mentioned a couple of things about the temple, and Nandi is also present. So if you see the photo, it's like just Ganapati Hanuman, Ganapati Hanuman, Ganapati Hanuman. then Muneshwara Swami, Chaudeshwari, Kali, Ganapati Ganapati. So thank you for that, Archit and Sandeepji. We hope to bring you back soon. To now, I think the base is set to finally get to Nakshatras, which is your what excites you the most.
Yeah, sure. Happy to come at some point in the future. Sure.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.